Meeting called to order.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 1046 et sec, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising the Star Ledger, El Nuevo Coquí, Haiti Progress, and Luz Americano newspapers, and by distribution to the administrative offices of the Newark Public Schools. A copy of the meeting notice was forwarded to City Hall for posting. This is a board business meeting for Tuesday night, August 15, 2017. Flag salute. Justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Bledsoe.
President.
Ms. Carter.
Present.
Ms. Von Second.
Yes.
Gaddy.
Present.
Ms. Garcia.
Present.
Ms. Johnson.
Present.
Ms. Owens.
Present.
Mr. Padilla.
Present.
Chair Lewis.
Present.
Quorum is present, Mr. Chair. Everyone's here.
Now we'll have committee reports from our committee chairs. We're gonna start off tonight with program and instruction. Ms. Owens, looked like you was the only one ready.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. So program instruction, committee report. Chair Leah Owens, Vice Chair Reginald Bledsoe. The date of the meeting was Tuesday, August 8th, 2017. Length of the meeting, 5:32 to 8:04 p.m. All members were attending, myself, Reginald Bledsoe, Dashae Carter, and Marquise Akil Lewis. Administrators attending, Brad Haggerty, Robert Gregory, Marissa Castillo, Dr. Sunrise Smith, Dr. Kelly Williams, Nancy Deering, and Erskine Glover. Others were Almo Saab and Yvette Jordan. Agenda items discussed. The main topics were Code of Conduct, Focus Group with Principals, Newark History Course, South Ward Community Schools Initiative, Review and Target Goals for 2017-2018, Enrollment Trends for Eastside, Behringer Steam, Behringer Arts, and Central, Strategic Plan Outlook Priority 1, an update on a proposal for PQS vetting with the school board. There were, a fluctuating number of resolutions in front of the board because there are some changes that will be made between now and next week, but we'll update you accordingly. But at this point, 21 resolutions, 7 under Finance and Operations, resolution to accept Year 2 SIG grant, an internal audit unit report on community-based preschool provider Clinton Hill Community and Early Childhood Center, the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Grant for this school year, non-public security aid, non-public technology aid, non-public textbook aid, and a Community Foundation of New Jersey grant to Science Park High School. 10 resolutions under purchasing, science instructional materials, neurodevelopmental and pharmacological treatment consultation for students, pre-qualification solicitation for individualized education program related services, pre-qualification solicitation for web-based services, stand and deliver program purchasing, student assessments, a rejection of request for proposal 8822, social services for students attending non-public schools, Office of Special Education programmatic, instructional and supplemental supplies, Office of Special Education professional related services, and Special Education nurse services purchasing, reference 8840. Under program instruction, there are 4 resolutions: the authorization of district field trips, athletic programs for this school year, debate league schedule for the school year, and the Newark History course offering. Smaller topics included field trips, summer school attendance, plan for reviewing and revising the district grading policy, Principal Leadership Institute calendar, and looking ahead for next month. We'll be reviewing data for park data, the 16-17 attendance data, graduation rate, school-based park data, and then also summer school data in terms of academic outcomes and updated graduation rate. Important points of information. Code of Conduct Focus Group with Principals. Office of Student Supports conducted a focus group with 6 principals to receive feedback on the proposed revisions. The focus group was given an update on the major changes that have been made to Policy 5131, Discipline/Conduct, and Policy 5114, Suspensions and Expulsions. Mainly, principals were on board with the levers for change and the recommended changes in both policies. Most of the questions and comments that came out of the focus group were focused on the principals' need to know the district's plan and procedures to roll out and implement changes to discipline, as well as shift toward a restorative culture. Principals were assured that trainings will be offered throughout the year and guidance around the changes will be issued to support school staff with implementation. The goal of the revised district discipline policy is to get away from over-reliance on suspensions and move toward restorative practices, so to have a progressive, not punitive model. Newark History course. 2 NPS history teachers presented the developed curriculum. Upon board approval, the course will be taught for the first time this fall. It will be viewed as a pilot with opportunities for teachers to provide feedback and comments on the lesson plans after they have taught them. There was overwhelming agreement that we should revise the social studies curriculum to be more Newark-centric, including beginning to teach Newark history at the lower grades. Southport Community Schools Initiative, review and target goals for 17-18. The 17-18 school year is being considered the first year of the initiative. Last year, the focus was on planning and consensus building. The organizational structure has changed in that there is a special assistant for community schools employed by the district, along with project coordinators at the 4 elementary schools. A lead director employed by Rutgers Newark is spearheading the work at Malcolm X Shabazz High School. There are no longer lead agencies partnered with individual schools. All goals, strategies, and activities are centered on the 6 core elements with focus in a few key areas: training, professional development, culture and climate, parents and community involvement, data and evaluation, and expanded and extended learning time. Specific activities include school-based leadership teams attending a national conference in October, principals training at the Center for Creative Leadership in North Carolina, and the creation of a new template to collect and analyze data. A calendar of events for the 5 schools was also provided. Enrollment trends for Eastside, Barringer STEAM, Barringer Arts, and Central. Projections, match targets, and current enrollment data were provided for Barringer STEAM, Barringer Arts, Central, and Eastside High Schools. As of August 4th, Barringer STEAM is the only school of the 4 that overall is over-enrolled by 23 students, though over and under-enrollment varies by grade level at each school. For example, the freshman classes at all 4 high schools are under-enrolled based on the number of students funded for in the school's budgets. District administrators will conduct weekly phone calls to monitor enrollment at these 4 schools. If any of the schools reach capacity, students will be enrolled at other high schools, namely Weequahic, Malcolm X Shabazz, and Westside, and their capacities will be increased as needed. Strategic Plan Outlook Priority 1. The committee was provided with progress notes on all strategies, actions, and milestones under Priority 1, strengthened academics and student supports of the strategic plan. See attached document. As reported, the district is on track with 4 of the 5 strategies, but slightly off track with 1 strategy, namely create caring, welcoming schools that support learning. The explanation given for this is that the Office of Student Supports often had to respond to difficult situations last school year. This was not accounted for in the planning. To alleviate this issue, ward-based response teams have been created to more effectively respond to serious traumatic events and to allow the Office of Student Supports to get back on track with the strategic plan. There are no particular conclusions reached, ongoing issues still under consideration, information requests from this meeting still to be filled. The projections, match targets, and current enrollment data for Weequahic, Malcolm X Shabazz, and Westside High Schools. And the recommendation is that this committee recommends that the Newark Board of Education vote yes to all resolutions presented to the committee that are up for vote this month.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Anyone have questions?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Good.
Ms. Owens, we're going to add the discipline policies that you talked about, 5131 and 5114, as legal items to the agenda, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're finalizing, and we'll get that out to the board.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Can I get a motion?
Move it. Second.
Padilla and Bledsoe.
Fonseca,
Is
Bledsoe.
on second, Bledsoe? This is a motion to approve the August 8, 2017 P&I Committee report as delivered by Board Member Owens, moved by Board Member Fonseca, second by Bledsoe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries. Report accepted.
We'll now have personnel and policy by Board Member Dashay Carter.
Good evening. Our meeting was held on August 9th. It was called to order at 4:09. Those in attendance were myself, Josephine Garcia via the phone. District staff was Larissa Schomburg, Herb Daughtry, Janelle Evans, Andrea Cavanis, and Sarah. We did a review of June's committee's meeting. We talked about the personnel transition plan. We will receive feedback from the Attorney General's office this week on the plan. We still anticipate that the plan will be ready for presentation at the full August board meeting as the final step before execution of the plan. There's currently a board retreat scheduled for September 23rd, where we want to introduce training on compensation and benefits. Most likely it'll be provided by the NJSBA again, and our broker of record. We then spoke about the instructional vacancies for the 2017-2018 school year, As of the committee meeting, we were 98.1% staffed with only 64 vacancies remaining. We are working with our academic teams to continue to interview and fill vacancies. As of today, we are still 98% staffed, but with 69 vacancies due to last-minute resignations from teachers. However, when specifically looking at teacher vacancies that provide direct instruction, we only have 50 vacancies remaining to fill, which is the lowest amount that we have on record since tracking the data. However, our goal is still to open the year with 0 vacancies. We then spoke about the policy of language around the notification to parents. We made changes to the current board policy per Board Member Owens when she was previously on the committee to inform parents about teachers who are out of certification working with their students for more than 45 days. New items we discussed were the board resolution, the RFP for recruitment and staffing services. Per our strategic plan to improve and increase our recruitment efforts, the district bid out services and have awarded 4 vendors for recruitment and staffing services, which are PCG, Select Ed, Teach for America, and TNTP. Those bid responses were left in the board office for all members to review if you're interested. So I ask that all board members take a look at it so that we can vote on it next week. We also spoke about the mentor teacher program. The committee was provided with the district mentoring program in the form of a handbook provided. The handbook is being updated with new information due to shifts in state requirements. The new handbook will be distributed during the new teacher orientation on August 23rd, and when completed will be sent to all board members. In addition to the mentoring program, in alignment with our strategic plan, the district is also starting to engage with other services to train mentor teachers and new teachers during other resources as well. We were also updated on union negotiations with 617, CASA, and the NTA. And lastly, we spoke about the Weight Watchers. In an effort to expand positive support we bring to our employees, the district is going to share with employees this month that they're bringing the Weight Watchers to the district at a reduced rate. We will not need to pay for this, but we are able to utilize the wellness dollars that we receive from Aetna as part of our contract with them. We will be offering an employee contribution of half of the cost per month. This will be launched as a new school year, new you initiative. The meeting was adjourned at 4:50. Are there any questions?
Yes. Over here. The bids for teacher recruitment, how long will that contract be for? Is it for a year, 2 years?
It's for a year, 1-year contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Motion.
Fonseca?
Fonseca. Is there a question?
I have a question, yeah. Larissa, my question is, how short are we in science and math teachers? How short are we in science and math teachers?
So
What are those vacancies?
I'll go through the list. We have 2 vacancies for academic interventionists, 1 for athletic trainer, 1 for the Center Direct Early Childhood Center, 1 social worker, 2 art teachers, 9 bilingual. However, we have 20 in the pool. We have 1 biology teacher, 3 chemistry teachers, 3 teachers of the deaf, 5 elementary teachers, 3 second language English teachers, 1 music, 8 math, 1 physical education, 1 pre-K, 2 science, 1 Spanish, 9 special education, 7 teacher coaches, and 6 vice principals.
Thank-
So, for example, when you look at the math for your question, there are 8 vacancies right now in math, but last year at this time we had 29. So we're sort of tracking we have 8 left. We, I believe, have 10 applications that have been screened in the pool for principals to interview. So there are still available candidates that have already applied to fill those positions, and our math department is currently interviewing those individuals.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Question.
Ms. Gaddy?
Can you just add, I know I received the minutes, but we didn't have that background information with the actual list of vacancies and the positions. Can that be forwarded to the board members, please?
Yes.
One last question. What's the track record of the 4 vendors that were selected?
Track record in what regard?
To performance and their hiring practices?
So some of them are not being used for hiring practices. So for example, TNTP is being used to create a new recruitment campaign per the strategic plan initiative. They'll be developing videos of our teachers, videos of Newark as a city, videos of our principals, redesigning a hiring website for teachers. So they're not going to be focused on hiring specific teachers. They're going to be focused on the overall recruitment campaign. They're a national organization that works in urban districts across the country and has a high level of regard in that area. For TFA, Teach for America, again, a high level of track record for finding teachers across the country. Last year, we brought in 6 TFA teachers. This year, we hope to bring in 8. So it's not large numbers. It's just that they will be providing us with hard-to-staff teachers. Select Ed and PCG are a little bit less of a known track record. That's why their contract is we only pay when we hire a teacher from them. So we could hire 0 teachers and not pay them anything. They screen candidates and give us a pool of candidates to draw from. So if PCG, for example, finds us a math teacher, we would pay them a finder's fee, in essence, for finding that math teacher. If we don't hire anyone, we pay them nothing.
Now, is this contract on an as-needed basis, or it's going to be ongoing?
Which contract of the 4?
The recruitment.
The TNTP?
Yes.
It's a 1-year contract, so the term of the contract ends at the end of the fiscal year.
And how many other school districts in this state are using those vendors?
I don't know within New Jersey how many districts use those vendors.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, there was a motion pending to accept. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to touch on the contracts that they said
Turn
they
your
gave
mic
you.
on.
It's on. It's on. I just wanted to touch base on the contracts. You said they updated you with information. What kind of information did they update you with? I'm particularly concerned about the CASA contract because it's been
So that's not information we can talk about now.
Okay.
But we can speak, that's a executive session conversation. So that's
Okay.
why I gave a general to let you guys know we spoke about it.
Okay.
But that's something we'll do later.
Okay.
Is that it? Okay, there's a motion pending to accept the report by Ms. Fonseca. Is there a second?
I also just want to just clarify, the personnel minutes should be distributed to all board members, not just those on the committee, so they can have that before them.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Garcia?
Garcia tape.
This is a motion to accept the August 9th, 2017 Personnel Committee report as delivered by Ms. Carter, moved by Board Member Fonseca, and second by Board Member Garcia. All in favor? Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries. Report accepted.
So, just before I go to the next committee, Ms. Gaddy just brought up something about committee meetings. I'm gonna ask committee chairs if from now on, before our business meeting, before Monday, you could get your minutes to Martha or to the board relations department, so to make sure every board member have it, or they can put it at ESB as well, so we can see it and view it as you go through it.
Mr. Lewis?
Except for finance, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Finance meet the night before, so.
I
you
did the
can't do
minutes
it.
for this one, but it was a draft because we met late last night, but we will make sure they do get them the day of the business meeting.
Yes.
I actually have this set today.
Okay, no
And
problem.
Mr. Lewis, just to be clear, at least for program instruction, we have minutes and then we have a report. So I can't guarantee you I'm gonna have the report, but I can make sure the minutes are
The
are
minutes,
sent.
minutes
Okay.
is fine,
Thank you.
all right?
So, through board relations too, can we make sure that central office directors or departments provide board relations with the adequate amount of copies of documents for board members? Because I believe an email went out today from Martha in regards to that. So we need to send that message to the departments.
All right, so, next, go Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Board Chair, members of the board. Good evening, members of the community. Mr. Bledsoe, the practice has been that whenever we ask for copies, we ask for 15, and sometimes 16, I'm being told, and sometimes as many as 25. So if there's an issue with that, we will address it.
Thank you. Ms. Carter, you ready to go up again? Okay, I'll let you breathe. Finance, Ms. Fonseca.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Yesterday, our meeting started at 6 p.m. Attending were all finance committee members. I'm sorry, they gave me a sheet around here. Sorry about that. Tafe Padilla, Reggie Bledsoe, Dashe Carter, and on the district's end was Pablo Canella, Chanel Spriggs, Jason Ballard, Elvis Matos, and of course, Miss Valerie Wilson. We went through all of the items to be approved, well, to be voted on the meeting next week. Everything was reviewed briefly. Nothing was of major concern, so we didn't really have any major discussion. There were topics that were discussed after we reviewed all agenda items. So I'm just going to briefly go through that. And again, I'll give everybody the copies of our draft notes. One of the items that we discussed was that all schools are ready to be open and ready for the new school year. So we're excited about that. The only school in question at this time is Lafayette Street School because there needs to be additional work and remediation completed. If there's any questions with regards to that, Ms. Val or Mr. Ballard will be more than glad to answer any of those questions. But all accommodations have also been made for those families that won't be able to go to the 4th floor of that building. And just an FYI, meetings will be held for the Lafayette Street parents tomorrow and Wednesday for any questions that they have or any concerns and to put everyone on the same page with regards to that. So we're doing it with ample timing prior to the first day of school. One of the other items we discussed that Mr. Bledsoe brought up was requesting that we reach out, well, that the district reach out to the housing authority with the 12 buildings we turned over to them, just to ensure that they are maintaining the property so that the district is not getting calls to clean the properties up. They guarantee that they will reach out to everyone, and Mr. Ballard did update me that first thing this morning. The district did reach out, and the housing authority did respond and say that they will continue to monitor those locations. One major topic of discussion that Board Member Carter brought up is the huge concern with regards to leases between NPS and charter schools, specifically Carver/Bruce Street School. One of the discrepancies that she mentioned was the fact that there's a lot of charter schools that are in our public schools, and it looks differently as far as the floor, so like the appearance. So you can see the difference between the presence of the charter schools opposed to our schools. So it could be like the paintings on the walls, the pictures on the walls. So Ms. Carter did bring up the fact that it causes a conflict for the children that are within those schools because it makes them feel either lesser because their floor doesn't look the same. So one of the suggestions that the district did take into account, and Ms. Val did commit to having these discussions, is that if they're paying to fix their floor of the building and they're utilizing our property, there should be some type of agreement of making the whole school beautiful because we are serving all the children. And again, it's an initial conversation. There were no guarantees made. There were no promises made. There were no contracts brought up, but it is something for us to start talking about. Because at the end of the day, Ms. Carter mentioned it's the importance of all the kids feeling the same. If they're in the same building, they should all feel comfortable. They shouldn't feel like they're on the ugly side of the building and the other kids are on the nicer side. So the entire committee agreed, and we did say that it's something we'll look into and continue to discuss. The last topic that we discussed, which is an initial discussion, and I asked that all board members just play with the thought, is that we discussed coming up with an actual plan of the maintenance of our buildings. As everyone knows here or should know, we have some of the oldest buildings in the entire state when it comes to our public schools, so they need major maintenance. It's very hard of a district of this size to maintain all these buildings, so we want to come up with a plan, you know, something that we can actually start working on. We can't paint all the buildings at the same time. It's impossible. Sometimes Ms. Val said we paint a building, in a few weeks there's a leak and it looks like the building was never painted. So we're looking at long-term options of what we can do to make the buildings not only maintained, but keep them up to date. So we started the discussion last night of building that plan and working towards it. Obviously, I said it's a long-term plan because it's not something that we can fix overnight, but it's something we're going to start working on. So those were the items that were discussed at yesterday's meeting, and all the finance committee members approved the items that are to be voted on. So we have no other recommendations Does anyone have any questions? No, I just want to add something.
Yes,
that we
ma'am.
spoke about. We also spoke about needing to see the lease. The lease is up and has been for a year. There were some acts of some things that KIP wanted from us as public schools. They wanted more classrooms. They wanted our art rooms. They've been utilizing space in the gym. So those are some things that we need to discuss as a board. We need to see what's negotiated. We need to see what those terms are. I am also, as she said, I think that there needs to be equity in the school with how the school is looking. They are in our building. So that's something as board members, we don't have the contract yet, that we need to sit down and talk, and finance is committed to seeing what those terms are. I believe that they're in the midst of negotiating that, which is something that was recent. Ms. Val can speak on that.
We might as well start this conversation now since Carver's been brought up. We were planning to provide an update to the board this evening and to the community. Carver has been a topic of discussion recently, and a very heated discussion. So to talk about Carver and the KIP co-location, we need to look at where we began. So in the 11-12 school year, KIP entered into a co-location with Carver. At that time, KIP was approved for K through fourth grade, and that was expected that they would grow out. They grow a grade per year. That co-location has continued to happen. Right now, their lease currently was amended, I think, in 2014, and it expired June of 2016. Yes, the district has not had a lease for a year, but there have been discussions going on. As Ms. Carter eloquently indicated, there is a need to place terms to determine the amount of space to be used, the common areas to be used, the rate, the term of the lease. All of those things have to be brought before the board, and it is the district's intention to bring that lease to the board in September for review. The recent discussion that has happened with KIP, and KIP has grown each year that they have been at the Carver location. Both schools are at a size now where they are really meeting in terms of space. What is important for the community and the board to remember is that KIP is at the last year of their growth. There will be no more growth in that Carver building. They would have to go for additional approval, and I will say that the district would not be a party to agreeing to that additional approval. They were originally chartered in that building for K through 4. They are now at fourth grade level, and that's this year is the last year of their expansion. So we want to talk about what exactly has been negotiated for KIP. Each year that they have grown, they have paid for additional common space. They have paid for additional exclusive space. Their rate of lease, the cost of their lease has also grown by CPI each year, which is a regular lease term that we have that's used across the industry. In the early spring this year, when there was an absence of a lease, there was a growth into an area on the first floor, which is known, not the auxiliary gym, because they've always had the auxiliary gym. They grew into the girls' locker room spaces. They're not currently using those for offices or anything else, but they do occupy that space. They will be expected to pay for that space beginning when they first acquired the space. Whatever date it was in the spring, they will pay forward for that. It will also be included in their new lease. This summer, there was a discussion between both principals in probably late July to discuss possibly getting additional classrooms, possibly taking an additional art room and swapping it out with Carver for a music room and some closets between the art rooms. What they ultimately ended up with, they asked for 4 classrooms. They ultimately ended up with 2 Bruce Street classrooms, and I'll talk about Bruce in a minute. So they've ended up with 2 Bruce Street classrooms. We are not going to switch both art rooms to KIP and have Carver use another room, because that room was not acceptable to be converted to an art room. So we are going to keep, each of them will have an art room. They will flip art rooms. That's a space of about 1,800 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a swap out. Both rooms are identical. The only reason we are flipping is so that each school can be adjacent to their own areas. KIP occupies the 3rd floor exclusively. KIP and Carver and Bruce occupy the 2nd floor. So KIP gained 2 classrooms. Bruce lost 2 classrooms, right? There were some closets between the art rooms. KIP gained 2 of those closets. Carver retains 2 of those closets. Once again, this is the final year of growth. Any space that has been occupied by KIP will be paid for retroactively to when they began occupancy and going forward. The distinction between the schools in common areas, there's a rough calculation that we actually use, which is approximately a 60-40 split in terms of auditorium, in terms of gymnasium, in terms of other things, other common areas. There are corridors that are specific to KIP and those that are specific to Carver. There are bathrooms, for example, on the 3rd floor that are specific to KIP because that's their exclusive space. They will pay for all of those items, and they have been paying for all of those items. We should note that they are current on their rent at this point in time for the space that they have occupied. What else do I want to tell you? I need to take a... Okay. Carver is also, as Superintendent Surf is reminding me, gained a single classroom. And this is the one piece that I'm not clear on. Bruce had 9 classrooms last year. This year they will have 6. 2 went to KIP, 1 went to Carver. All right? So Bruce, let's talk about them. They had 9 classrooms. They had approximately, in last year, 65 students. This year, they have 64 students, and they will have 6 classrooms. I know that Ms. Granado is here and can speak much more eloquently than I can to the special needs population. But I can say to you that if we look at the statute and if we look at the code, we are in compliance with that. We are also offering our auditory impaired students an ability to interact with some of their multiply disabled auditory impaired students. We believe, and the research shows, that the children, by working together and being combined, once again in a classroom that is within compliant standards. So it is not an overcrowded classroom. It's not 20 kids, it's not 30 kids. We're talking somewhere between 12 and I think up to 12. The range in the statute is 9 to 12, right? They will be able to interact with each other and help each other developmentally. Carolyn, if you want to jump in, is there anything you want to add? I'll get to it. Use the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. They'll also be supported by the New Jersey Coalition for Inclusive Education, where we will be including our auditory and multiply disabled students with our general ed population. And that will happen slowly, and it will happen with a lot of PD and a lot of support for all of our teachers and all of our children.
Thanks. In addition, we should note that Bruce's average class size this year will in fact be 10.7 children in a class. Carver had 479 kids last year. They had 24 classrooms, and they averaged 20 kids in a classroom. This year, to date, they have 428 students registered. They have 25 classrooms, and their average class size will be 17.1. So let's talk about Seek. Seek has 448 students, 16 classrooms, with an average class size of 28 students. This year, they have 563 kids, and we will share this data on our website. I know everybody's trying to copy it down. We will share this. 563 kids, 20 classrooms, with an average of 28.2 children per class. So there have been some, there have been some construction projects that have happened at Carver since 2011, right? There was a equity project, many of you remember when Seek first moved into the building. There were some air conditioners put in, there were some smart boards, some technology. That is now 6 years later, right? And we realized that some other things need to be done. So this year, I can tell you that Seek is renovating the library. The word out on the street is they're taking over the library. That is not the case. They will share the library. The library is to be decorated in neutral colors because it is a shared space. It is a wonderful opportunity for both leaders in the school to present decals or other items that identify each of their schools. So when the children come together in that space, they understand that this is a co-location. They're going to help me renovate the courtyard, right? We also, you will remember, I think last year or the year before, probably 2 years now, Mr. Leon led an effort where we put with the Red Bulls a partnership for a soccer field, a soccer pitch there. They are part of our capital bond project where we will overhaul the elevator. And yes, we are actually going to upgrade the HVAC at Carver's Auditorium. It will not, you can clap for that because it's about $750,000, right? We will not be air conditioning the entire school. The HVAC system covers the auditorium. We're putting up new banners and signage at Carver. And the superintendent and I, based on the conversation we had in finance, are discussing what we think may be some options to do some things at Carver to make it more equitable for both schools. So what are our next steps? The board will receive the lease, the proposed lease for the Carver Seek co-location at the September cycle. That lease will contain the appropriate square footage pieces. It will contain the term. It will contain the cost and any other pertinent issues. Prior to that, I see you moving the mic, Ms. Carter. Prior to that, you will receive the current lease document. So you will have something, and when I say prior, I mean in the next few days, not just before September's meeting. So you will have an opportunity to analyze. So we've discussed Carver in detail here because I think there's a lot of misinformation that's floating out there that needs to be corrected. So that's basically, I don't think we painted all hallways and classrooms at Carver last year. We renovated the main office. I don't think I've missed anything. Anything I've missed?
No, I think you, Val.
We have, I'm coming, Ms. Gaddy, 36 new security cameras that have been put in that's not just this year, that's over the last couple of years. There's also a conversation that SEEK is putting up cameras. They have always had cameras in the areas they occupy on the 3rd floor. They are now placing cameras because they have 2 classrooms, an art room and a music room on the 2nd floor. The only new place on the 2nd floor are the 2 Bruce Street classrooms. Yes, Ms. Gaddy.
I was just going to say, I don't know, I think you skipped over the painting of the hallways last year, Kip.
I caught it just at the end as you
Okay.
called out.
I just want to make so I just want to say this so everybody's on the same page. Overall, there are no kids being displaced from George Washington Carver, from Bruce Street, and from Seek. Nobody's being displaced.
That is correct, Ms. Johnson. My understanding is that every child who has requested a space at Carver has received it. Every child who has requested a space at Bruce has received it. And I cannot confirm for Seek, but I'll find out.
Yeah, because that was just like the biggest rumor of the whole issue that was going on. That was saying that the library was being trashed. They was taking all the books and throwing them away. You confirmed that that's not true. And now you're saying that those 2 classrooms that they are going to be utilizing from Bruce Street, nobody is being displaced.
They're being displaced out of their class.
They're being moved to other classrooms but those classrooms will still be in compliance, but nobody is being displaced out of the assignment to Carver, the actual building.
Yeah.
Ms.
Wilson,
Owens.
thank you. Thank you for the details on that. Definitely appreciate understanding the situation that's happening at the school and that is being publicly presented. So when we receive the lease information, I know that I would also be interested in knowing whatever information that can be shared in terms of the district's plans for that building. Do we have any plans in terms of instruction, what we want to do with it, the next year, 5 years, and then the same thing for Seek. What are their intentions in staying in the building and growing or expanding or anything like that? So I think information along those lines will also be helpful for me.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Carter.
Okay, so I have a few things to say. One, I heard a comment that we gained a classroom. How can we gain a classroom in our own building? That's our building. So we're letting them have our space. In terms of speaking
Ms. Carter, I feel the need to speak to that immediately. What I said was Bruce had 9 classrooms last year. This year they have 6. So Carver has in fact gained a classroom so that the math will be accurate. There are 2 classrooms that went to Bruce. I hope you don't mind my interrupting, but I feel the need to answer immediately.
The second thing is we talk about averages. The average classroom size can be very misleading. So I would like information to know if we have any overcrowded classrooms. It's been reported to me that there are some classes that are overcrowded in Carver, and I feel like that's unacceptable, even if it's one class, because we're allowing someone else to gain space in our building. I think that it is problematic that Bruce Street lost 2 classes. There were students occupying both of those classes, 6 students, I believe, in each class. I think we as a district need to continue to improve that program. That is the only program in the district as such. We need to invest in that program because we can make money where we can allow other people out of district to come into Bruce and we can charge them. So we need to utilize the space that we have. In addition, we can also use Carver for pre-K and kindergarten classrooms because we have a waiting list for pre-K students in the city, so we can utilize our space for our students. Also, there's not an argument over paint. I think there's an argument over equity. And there's no reason why our students should feel less than in a building. If they're utilizing our building, our students in Carver shouldn't feel like they're on one part of the building. It may seem simple to adults as saying it's paint, But to our students, they hear what's going on in the community about public and charter. They're in that building, so there's no reason why when you walk down one hallway, you should see all these inspirational quotes and you should see all of this paint. And when we walk through Carver, there's a clear distinction. So those type of things are important because it does something to the child psychologically. And so that's important. We need to make sure that we stand up for our students in the district. So if it's something that seems like it's small to you all as paint, it is not just paint. We're talking about the well-being of our children and what they're thinking and how they're perceiving it. So I want us to make sure that we're doing what's necessary, and if not, then SEEK needs to find another place and get out of Carver, period.
Chair, may I respond?
Just, Madam Beer.
Ms. Carter, I've heard your comments, and if I communicated that it was just a coat of paint that I intended, no, I want to be clear in my communication with everybody, and I want everybody to understand. I am not, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I am not speaking only about painting. It involves technology. It involves decals. As a matter of fact, Principal Thomas this year has ordered $13,000 worth of decals that we're going to put up. So when we talked last night about conditions in the building, I do have some ideas. I've already discussed them with the superintendent. I'm not ready to publicly say them, but I have something that I think might solve some of the issue. Of course, it's going to require an investment that was not in our budget, because it doesn't magically happen. And your idea about talking to our charter partners in the building to help them help in some ways is something I already discussed with the superintendent this morning. So I want it clearly understood that on behalf of the district, we are committed to there being equity, right? We are committed to that. We are committed to children feeling as though they are in a space that is consistent, that is where it needs to be, right? We've painted our building. Our buildings, I'm going to say this, our buildings are old. They're gracious, but they're old, right? But we need to be clear that it's going to take some efforts to bring them to where they need to be. And it can be done. But I want everybody to understand that that's a commitment.
Anyone else?
Chair, I would like to have the lease reviewed by the legal committee, if we could schedule that. Okay.
So we'll have a legal committee meeting?
And
Right.
Also, I would like to know how long will this lease run? I'm not a commercial property expert, but I would like to know, though.
I can tell you that the district has not determined what the lease term will be, but I can also tell you that the charter is interested in a long-term lease. I'm not going to tell you an untruth here. I'm going to tell you exactly as it is. They are interested in that, and it is something that we will have to discuss both at finance, at legal, with all the committees, and the board be ready to determine what they are willing to approve when we get to that point.
And just one last thing. I just think that when, as school board members, we see employees of this district, and it's no disrespect to anyone, the tone that we set when you have articles in newspapers considering that we're in the process of negotiating this lease, I think that the timing of this particular article was not the right time for it. It should have been published some other time, because when you set that precedent, it tells this district that our central office administration expectations and views are somewhere else. And that's not an attack on anyone, but I'm just saying that the timing of the article was not appropriate, in my opinion.
Any other response? We can have a motion.
Yeah, motion to approve finance.
Motion.
One second.
Carter.
Carter, I'm sorry. Second? Johnson? This is a motion to approve the August 14, 2017 Finance Committee report as delivered by Board Member Von Secca. Moved by Ms. Carter and second by Ms. Johnson. All in favor? Any opposed or abstained? That motion carries. The report's accepted.
Next report is our community engagement report.
Good evening again. This meeting was called to order at 5:48 on August the 10th. Those in attendance were myself, the chair, the vice chair, Josephine Garcia, Floisha Johnson, committee members, the NPS committee designee is Margarita Munez. We spoke about the welcome. We welcomed all members. We went over the review of the minutes from last month. We then spoke about the committee review standards and operation norms it would adhere to. Some of those norms for the Community Engagement Committee are as follows. We expect our members to be on time, be present, be prepared, expect to be uncomfortable at times, always show a united front. We also spoke about the community listening session. Board member Carter and myself shared that I envision a new approach to the listening sessions this year. I would like for us to involve the City of Newark, the council members, in collaboration with community organizations to roll out key initiatives such as local control and other things. I believe that a lot of people have meetings around the city about education and they don't include Newark Public Schools. So Newark Public Schools should be involved in all educational conversations, and we need to build alliances in the community as we go back to returning to local control. The committee also spoke at length about the idea to support the new approach. Board Member Garcia suggested meeting members of the council during the council break sessions. Board Member Carter shared that the committee should facilitate that conversation with members of the council to gauge their support and sponsorship. Board Member Garcia will assist in setting that up. We also spoke about family and community engagement updates. Each member was given a binder with copies of the CES reports by ward. At the moment, there are 3 senior managers, and their responsibilities are aligned by ward in an effort to establish and nurture community contacts, connections, support, and partnerships. We were also updated on the conference that our face office attended. Margarita shared that they had a rewarding time at the conference, and stated that they plan to implement some of what they learned at the next PLI, which is on the 18th of August, in which all board members are invited to at Montclair State. FACE also provided insight on strategies and new ideas learned at the conference, such as the academic parent-teacher teams, APTT. They also discussed what was learned in regards to the grade level school parent compacts, which will be shared with us in greater detail, and the principals at the PLI. Margarita also highlighted that our team, the City of Newark, was the only team selected to meet with the Dean of the School of Education to discuss possible partnerships, which is big. FACE will also be investing a lot of time at our PLI to support principals with ideas to reflect and examine what they are doing around this work that they learned. We then spoke about the FACE calendar and key dates. There are several FACE calendars were shared: Professional Development, Parents as Parents Institute, and the FACE 2017-18 calendar of events. The document will be ready at the next meeting with the key dates as we did last year. Old business, new business. I raised the issue of not having all our calendars sync for all the events. It was advised by Paul that the progress has been made, but this has been challenging, and he does not want to overpromise on some things that cannot be done. He added that the back to school nights, sports and arts events can be accommodated, but pep rallies are difficult. Things such as pep rallies are difficult to capture on our board calendars. I suggested that we do more parent and child activities to engage parents when we're having these sessions. So if we're asking parents to come out, we're doing something that relates to education. We're doing something that both the parent can engage with their child, and it's a moment for them to bond, and it's also a moment for them to come and understand and learn the information in which we want to provide to them. I think that would make it have more parents come out to participate. We then spoke about graduation attendance. Board Member Garcia shared that she would like there to be more presence from the assistant superintendents at graduations, particularly at the high school. And I mentioned that that's kind of difficult to do because when there are high school graduations, there's a conflict in schedule. So there's only one assistant superintendent for a high school. So that assistant superintendent cannot be at multiple places at one time. Also suggested that there be cap and gowns provided for board members so that we are in uniform. There were times where the principals asked for us to wear our cap and gowns, but if one doesn't have it, we all need to come dressed alike. So if that's something that we can do as a district. So we then spoke about the process to request proclamations and recognitions. Paul explained that at the moment there's no structure or criteria in place to process recognitions. A conversation followed stating that the importance to clarify the difference between a proclamation and a recognition. I shared that we need to broaden the scope of recognitions and proclamations outside of just sports. We need to focus on the academics and the arts. Our children are doing a lot of great things in this city. And so monthly, I would like to recognize our students. There are a lot of great things that happened last year, such as some of the science things that some of our students went and participated in at Malcolm X Shabazz High School. Our Ty did some great things, and we tend to only recognize those who are doing sports, but we need to let our students know that we appreciate the great things they're doing academically, and that's ultimately what it's about. The agenda items was discussed in length. Committee will continue to brainstorm on ideas to establish a clear process in doing so. Communications will follow up with the principals during PLI and combine requests of good news and ask to nominate exceptional staff members as well. That was another idea I had. I think we also need to recognize our staff members and let them know that we appreciate what they're doing and that they're doing a great job, and we recognize that. We also spoke about the newly proposed board council. Mrs. Munez provided a recap of the first planning meeting held with Board President Lewis to reinstate the Parent Advisory Council. Present at the meeting were Margarita, Assistant Superintendent Gregory, Board Chair Lewis, Denise Carford, Diane Gayoso, and other members of the FACE team. Some of the items discussed were the PAC structure, which would whether it would be an ad hoc committee versus a 501c3. Working on the operating standards and bylaws, meet with assistant superintendents to discuss members and possible designations for the network. I then shared that I received a request from members of CPAC seeking assistance from us as a committee. CPAC members shared with me that the district was not supporting them and could not provide them with a space for them. Mrs. Munez explained that the members requested funding for food, district cell phones, and support with the development of a website. Unfortunately, at this time, they are an independent committee that the district cannot accommodate all of their requests. NPS can and will support with space for meetings, food, beverages for meetings, printed as needed, and support staff. I will follow up with CPAC members accordingly. We then spoke about robocalls, making sure that all committee members are on the robocalls and receiving the robocalls of all activities that's happening across the district. Not lastly, we then spoke about the funding proposal that I will work on with other members of this committee. I was asking and requesting that community engagement receives a portion of the additional $6 million allocation to support our efforts to engage and support parents this school year in the community. I also stated that there should be a CES at every school and that all CESs should be doing is parent engagement work. Right now, parent engagement isn't at the forefront of what they do. They're doing other things such as lunch duties, attendance. We want community engagement work to be at the forefront because that's what their title is. And so it is our request as a committee that we do that and that we make an effort and a commitment to making sure that they are focusing solely on community engagement and that we will be putting a plan together, a proposal to present to you, Val, as to how much money we would like and what we would like to do with it so that all questions are answered that way. We're doing it appropriately. We then, lastly, we discussed adding in a debriefing at the end of our meeting just so we know what went well, what didn't, and how we can improve for the next meeting. So that's something that we went across, how we can improve our meetings so that they're as efficient and effective as possible. And we adjourned at 7:38. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
I'm sorry if I missed this, but was there any conversation about the Transparency Committee?
No.
Is there any update?
There
Ms.
is.
Lewis, somebody.
So I think there's a meeting coming up, a conference call tomorrow with myself, Board Member Lewis, Deshawn. What happened was a few months ago, or maybe a month or two ago, there were about 6 to 10 people who applied. There was a committee who selected it down to, I believe, 6 people, Marquise. I wasn't a part of that. Then we did an interviewing process. Unfortunately, we had members of the community who did not show up to be interviewed. We then said we were gonna open up the application process again. They opened up the application process a second time. They didn't get a better response. The district said that they worked with the CESs and FACE to get the word out. I believe 4 or 5 members applied again. So now the meeting tomorrow is to work on a strategy to see, which I'm including in this time, to see how we can get more parent involvement from our traditional public school parents. And we'll be able to report back hopefully by next meeting. I'll send an email to you all to let you know what was discussed at the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I just have.
Would like to know why isn't the student rep here? Her peers elected her to sit here on this board. They didn't want to reach out to her. She's
Part of what?
The student rep representative.
Why she not where?
Here.
It's September.
Oh, okay.
September. So Ms. Carter, just a few things. The student recognition, I'm glad that you brought that up. That's something that I've been talking to the district about, making sure that we bring that back. Staff recognition, I asked the district recently if each month we could start recognizing a department. I'm starting at our union meetings, the 29th, right, Ms. Lil? 29th? The 29th, we're going to be recognizing all the security guards, custodian workers, and I believe that's it. So each month, we're going to be recognizing our staff members, just showing them the appreciation for the hard work that they do in our district. So, secondly,
So in doing that, can you make sure you collaborate with us so that we're all on the same page and know that?
we'll
Because this is the
we'll
first
send
time.
it out.
Thank you.
The second thing is the CPAC. You talked about CPAC. I want to ask the district, along with CPAC, can we assist CPAC with a link on the district website where we could give them a link where they can do their own, where we can create a link where people want to know about CPAC, their meetings, more information about them. They could go on the district website on their own link. So I want the district to look into doing something like that. I saw a few people looking at me, so. So if we can just make sure that we do that to assist the committee, and that's all I have for you at this time.
Are there any more questions?
Go ahead, Ms.
Do we know how many community engagement specialist positions are open? I know it was 4 that was open before. Is it still 4?
Right now, there's one open at Barringer.
One at Steam and one at Speedway. And I agree. This is the last thing I wanted to say, Ms. Carter. I agree that our community engagement officers need to be in the community. Principals need to understand that they are not their they're not the person that fill in for their gap they have in their school, but these people are responsible for being in the community, engaging with the residents and the parents in the community. They're not lunch duty aides. They're not security guards. They're not counselors. They are community people building with the community. So we would just want to make that clear to all principals.
One more quick question.
Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Is there a CES position still available at Weekway?
No.
Barringer. She said one at Barringer.
No, I'm just asking because I know it was one at Weekway that was open. Somebody had inquired about that to me, so I'm just asking. No? Okay.
A motion? Fonseca? Proceed a second.
Okay, it's a motion to accept the August 10, 2017 Community Engagement Committee Report as delivered by Ms. Carter, moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Ms. Garcia. All in favor? Any opposed or abstained? That motion carries. Report accepted.
Thank you. Next and last is operations by our Vice Chair Padilla.
Good evening, everyone, members of the community, my fellow board members, BA Wilson, Mr. Surf, and the superintendents that are here. My report will be very brief because the magnificent report that Ms. Val gave out on Carver and Seek and Bruce Street was basically the topic of my committee. The meeting was held Tuesday, August 8th. Meeting came to order at 5:04 p.m. Board members in attendance were Board Member Gaddy, Kim Gaddy, Reggie Bledsoe, Chair Marquise Lewis from the district, Cynthia Pickney was there, BA Valerie Wilson was there, Superintendent Surf made an appearance, Interim Executive Director Paul Ingle was there, and from the facilities team, Mr. Maurice Rawls and Mr. Vincent Hutchinson were there. So we touched upon some pretty hot topics at our committee meeting. One of them being the securities, what went on in the schools, which was nothing. Eric called me and he says that nothing went on in the schools. There's nothing to report out. The other thing that we had on the agenda was the big Lafayette Street project, which Board Member Fonseca touched upon. At the urgence and at the request of Mr. Bledsoe, mural paintings that are being painted on the district, on every building. I think we're going to put a stop to that for the interim basis because we have no policy in place. Basically, the administrators from these buildings agreed that anybody can come in and put a mural up without any authorization from the district. What credentials the person has that's putting them up? Do they have any insurance? Who's going to maintain these murals? And what precisely and exactly is going on these buildings? I think that's something that needs to be addressed by the district and be approved by the board. The other big topic that came on that was on the agenda was fundraising. This came to light by Board Member Floisha Johnson and Board Member Kim Gaddy, where we regularly see players on the football teams, track teams, and various other sports peddling on the street for fundraising for their schools, which is okay, provided that they follow the policy, that each school has a treasurer. That treasurer has to file paperwork with the district, specifically Ms. Wilson's office, and then she authorizes that they can fundraise for whatever. What are the students' names that are fundraising, how much money they're collecting, and where's the money going? We have no information on that, nothing whatsoever. And yet they're continuously do it. They continuously continue to do it. Pictures were taken of certain students. Athletic directors, while remain nameless, they say that their child and their kids were not out there when in fact they were. So this is something that we're going to address very heavily. Ms. Gaddy and Ms. Floisha Johnson, we're going to talk about that very specifically. Now, we also have one big topic that came before the committee, which was the Crystal Water Project by Mr. Maurice Rawls and Mr. Vincent Hutchinson. I believe last year when I came on the board, at my first meeting, there was a report that came out that 47 of Newark Public Schools had lead in the water. So after an investment of approximately $1.8 million for various filters, faucets, new fountains, new tubing, EPA, DPA analysis and all that, I am very happy to report that of the 47 schools, 46 are back online as of September 1st. Okay. Now, with regards to this lease between Seek and Carver, I did spend a lot of time in the district last week. We did have a special meeting here pertaining to an additional $8.1 million that were allocated from the state to the district. So the big topic wasn't really the money, it was really the lease. So I took it upon myself, being the chair of operations, that I got together with the chairman, with Board Member Gaddy, and we came to the district a few times and we asked an array of questions, which Miss Valerie Wilson went into great depth with. So that's why really I don't have anything big and heavy to report on that. But one thing that I will assure you, The superintendent and the BA have confirmed with us that we will have a lease that we will vote on next month. As far as any details are concerned, I urge any board member if they have any specific questions pertaining to this lease, you can email me directly, or we can ask the superintendent directly. I did go in great depth because I had massive concerns about the perception in the community was that they're taking over the building. I mean, this is a big building. And if they're taking over this building, I mean, this is a lot of space. So just how much space is this? So I did go to Superintendent Cerf, and I did request if he can just give me a diagram, a sketch, an architectural sketch. This is what's available now. This is how much space they're going to be getting, the square footage, and the additional funding that they're going to be paying. Because it was also reported that we were giving space out. We were converting public space into private space for free, and that is not the case. Okay? In that lease, they are not getting anything for free. Mr. Cerf? Is that correct? They're getting nothing for free. So with pertaining to all of that, with all these questions regarding to the lease, there was a great depth in conversation. I sat here, and if you notice, I was the only board member that didn't say a word. Not a word. I'm like, they took up 90% of my report, so I didn't say anything else. But I will tell you, Ms. Gaddy was there, Mr. Bledsoe was there, and we did have an in-depth conversation pertaining to that. I did have an in-depth conversation with Superintendent Cerf, and I did have an in-depth, very in-depth conversation with Ms. Valerie Wilson pertaining to this lease because, again, it was very troubling to me. But once, you kind of get the facts and everything is kind of like brought to light, there's a misconception here. So I will assure you that for next month, Mr. Cerf, we will have a lease that the board will vote on. Any questions, board members? Feel free to email me, and ask any questions, or Mr. Cerf. And my meeting was concluded at 7:28 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to add a couple items that we also discussed. In the district, there has been a lot of trauma that our children have been impacted by, and we did mention that we was going to look into the traumatic effects that is happening to our children, and we're going to move part of that to the instruction committee and hopefully community engagement, because a lot of our kids' ability to regulate their emotions, they're having problems with that, and a lot of that is being tied to the violence. So we want to make sure that that trauma is being treated correctly with our children. Also, in terms of our credentials for sustainable Jersey certification. I had mentioned this to Ms. Wilson several months ago, brought it up at the last meeting. There is the opportunity for the Newark Public Schools to become certified through Sustainable Jersey. There's additional $180,000 funds that can be tapped into for numerous projects. They can be school-wide or district-wide. Some of the grants vary in the amount. But in particular, there are three areas that I mentioned several months ago that I want to make sure this district move forward on. One was a healthy school environment, particularly because of the indoor air quality, some of it very poor for our children. The high rate of asthma among children in Newark Public Schools is out of control. So we need to make sure that we are understanding that this impacts our children's ability to learn and that we are ensuring that our schools are healthy. The second area, of course, was the access to healthy water. We're on track with that. What Mr. Padilla didn't mention is that there is a tracking system that we will be notified when our water fountains reach a certain level. And we did ask for board members to actually be on that list as well, because we know what happened 20 years ago when we had this same issue. And so we want to make sure that if we are going to correct the lead in the drinking water, that the proper precautions are going to also be put in place, and that people are going to be held accountable so that it does not impact our children again, because we know the levels of lead in the drinking water, any level of lead is unacceptable, and it causes irreversible brain damage to our children, especially our young children. So that is one of the areas that we want to look at receiving our Sustainable Jersey certification, as well as with our energy efficiency. This district has been in the forefront for years in terms of some of the things that we're doing with solar panels, energy efficiency, the lights and things of that nature. And so we need to take advantage of these things that is happening. Then lastly, I've been talking about recycling in this district for years. So waste management and recycling is like an easy area that I think we should be able to participate in. And so I know, Ms. Wilson, you had stepped out when I brought this subject up, and because it wasn't just reported out, I do want to make sure that we continue to invest our expertise and our skill sets in these areas. And then lastly, I also mentioned, and I mentioned this to our chair last year, a lot of what we're doing in terms of the remediation and the corrective steps that we're taking with our lead in the drinking water has actually set the pace for what other school districts are doing throughout this state. We should be recognized for that. When we have New Jersey School Board Association committees and conferences, I mentioned that the committee, that we should be talking about what this district has done to begin to resolve those issues. So when individuals talk about Newark, it's not so negatively, it is some positive light on the successes that we have in this district. And it's okay for us to have those kind of conversations. So those were some of the other items that was not reflected in the minutes, but I want to make sure that they're noted. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Ms. Gaddy.
Ms. Fonseca?
Just two things. One, just for the record, as far as recycling goes, it's a conversation that's come up several times at the Finance Committee, and I have made note of it over the 2 years that I've been sitting here. And Ms. Val has made the effort along with Mr. Ballard, and we actually have a scheduled meeting for Friday at 3:30, 3 o'clock, to just explore some options of how to improve our recycling throughout the schools and how it would be beneficial not only environmentally but economically for the district. So we are going to discuss that, and I will make sure it's reported back to everyone here, including you, Ms. Gaddy. And just something else I wanted to mention as far as the water goes, I think that that's a great point that you're bringing up, Ms. Gaddy, as far as us being the forefront speakers. But I do want to give credit to Ms. Val, because I remember at the AC conference, I think it was last year, like they did give you the floor and you were able to just express not only the progress that we've made, but also the struggles that we've made. So that being brought to the light has also benefited us in kind of fixing the issues that we're having. So it is a discussion that's out there, and I know you don't like to be on the spot, but I know it's something that you've stood out for. So I wanted to just put that on the record, because it is a discussion that has been going on, and Ms. Val has done a lot of work and her team with that.
Mr. Bledsoe?
Let me just give one addition. The conversation about recycling, looking for new revenue streams, looking at green technology and stuff has not fallen on deaf ears. We currently have a posting out for an energy manager who I have given my facilities department a goal of getting, I think it's 2 or 3 schools this year, certified as sustainable green schools. So it's not an easy process, and everybody in the school has to be on board and cooperating, but that's the goal we have, and we're trying to work towards that. And if it kills us, we're going to do recycling. Okay?
Mrs. Bledsoe?
Also, to add on to Mr. Padilla's report, he, myself, Ms. Gaddy, and Mr. Lewis will be convening a meeting to discuss a policy for the murals, I believe. So soon we could set that up. Monday, committee stuff on murals. Set a policy. So just look out for that. Also, too, I agree with Ms. Gaddy with her point in reference to social and emotional development when dealing with violence, because it does have an effect on academics in our school district. So I just wanted to kudos her for that, and I appreciate that comment, and I would love to work with you on that as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just to touch upon what Mr. Bledsoe just said pertaining to that meeting, we will meet Monday, the 21st. It will be Board Member Gaddy, Mr. Bledsoe, myself, Interim Executive Director Paul Ingold, and we're going to draft the policy and we're going to give it to legal. So anything that's going to go on any building is going to be approved through the board. We're not saying that we're going to cut out murals. That's not what we want to do. But I think that this has to be a process that somebody has to be held accountable for who does the work, and more importantly, who maintains the work. Because as the weather, Jersey, we do get these big storms, and some of these murals, they're actually really beautiful. They're gorgeous. I mean, they really are. And then what's the size of the mural? What the mural is going to be? Does it fit in that building? Does it cohesive, with the neighborhood? We just don't want anything just to be put up there just for the sake of being put up there. So, and we're also going to involve Mr. Ingold in this, because it has something to do with the type of paint that you put on brick. And they have to be able to sustain that, and they have to be able to take care of that. So this is something that we will address immediately on Monday. Thank you.
Also, too, this committee did receive a complaint in reference to the positioning of flags outside of buildings. Can we just make sure through the facilities management office that we, as building level principals, are consistent in maintaining that type of appearance outside of school buildings, because people have fought and died for this country in order to have a flag laying on the
Well,
ground.
this is something that was also brought to light. I was the first one to bring this to the facilities team. I believe I saw in my district, in my ward, in the North Ward at First Avenue School, there were flags there. That's all I could say. There were flags. But they were like strands of flags. And that, to me, was totally, totally unacceptable. I mean, if you're going to hang a flag, hang a flag. Don't tell me that you don't have money in your budget for a flag. Because if you don't, I urge you, I'll go there, I'll call the district, and I'll say, listen, this school needs a flag. The other issue, we received a phone call, I believe it was from Ms. Carter. She called me last Friday, that there was a flag hanging loose on the ground at a North Ward school, and we had it removed immediately. Within a few hours, it was gone. Took pictures, sent it to the district, so it was gone. So that's something that we're addressing cohesively. Thank you. Well, this is something also, too, this topic of conversation we're going to have with them. Okay?
Motion.
Move it.
All right, I'm sorry.
Carter.
Carter, who was second?
Bledsoe.
You guys going too fast. It's a motion to accept the August 8th, 2017 Operations Committee report as delivered by Vice Chair Padilla. Moved by Ms. Carter, second by Mr. Bledsoe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
That conclude our committee reports.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
there is another committee. Are we not having a report from governance and board development? I was there.
That's a new committee. I forgot about that's a new committee.
Thank you. Something quick, because I know it was just our first one, but still, we did meet, and I think it's important that the public know.
So we had developed a new committee. As we, in light of local control, we're looking to strengthen our practices as a board to make sure that we're ready for local control. So myself and the vice chair believe that it was important that this board practice just like other local control districts around the country. So we decided to develop a governance and board development policy committee to help us with our trainings, to help us with our practices, to make sure that board is more aware of how to conduct and monitor a district. So in other districts, either the chair or the vice chair chairs that committee. I decided to let our vice chair, Mr. Padilla, lead that committee with his members being Ms. Owens, Ms. Carter, and Ms. Fonseca. So, Mr. Chair.
Well, yes, we did form that committee, and I'll be happily to report out on that. Thank you, Leah, for that reminder. Basically, what we're doing here now is, being that we're on the horizon, on the forefront of local control, what we have to understand here in Newark is that we are like no other district in the state. Our district is massively huge. We've been to several conferences. We've been to several retreats. I can name one retreat in particular in Princeton where a board member got up and spoke that their regional high school consisted of 1,200 students. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm like, Another board member came up and talked about that they had like 6 high schools. And I'm like, wow, One talked about that they had like 12,000 students. I was like, wow, that's really like, So then when we got up and we spoke, and I said, we represent total with, in our public schools and our charter schools, we have like 50,000 kids. And our budget is close to $1 billion. They were like floored with this. They were like, oh my God, how do you guys handle this? So then they talked about how many committees we sit on, what particularly did we do with these committees. And as we went forward, Chairman Lewis and I had a conversation, and we partnered in with Panasonic because they are a global corporation, and we sat down with them. We've been at 2 retreats. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
How many? 2. No, we've had 2 retreats with them, and basically what they're doing is implementing how we implement policy, how we implement protocol, and how certain things are done in a uniform manner on every committee. Fine, granted, you want to run your committee a certain way, but this has to be the protocol. This is the way things should be done. So that way now, when local control does get here, which will be here very soon, okay, this is something where we govern ourselves. Board members, Leah Owens, Dashay Carter, and Crystal Fonseca, they bring a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience to this committee. And I will point out someone who does sit on that committee with us, Ms. Nancy Deering. Nancy, where are you? Raise your hand back there. Nancy is someone who is constantly on me. Did you read this? Do the board members get this? Do you want this sent out to the whole board? Do you want this sent out only to the committee? And my response to that is I think everybody should be involved. There's 9 of us, but only 4 of us can sit on this committee. So going forward, I think Ms. Carter always alludes to this, that we all need to be on the same page with what it is that we're doing and disseminate the information to everyone. So I do not want to exclude anyone from what's going on in this committee. I want everybody to know specifically what's going on. I will handle all your requests in a timely manner. Anything that you want to discuss that by committee, that's no problem, but it has to be in by a certain time. That way, Ms. Deering and Ms. Jones and Ms. Wilson, I can get on them. This is specifically what the board members are asking for. This is specifically what we need going forward. So again, we only had 1 meeting. Our next meeting is going to be after our regular board meeting, which is the 23rd, I believe, if I'm correct, Mr. Chairman. And then we'll report out next month on what's specific. This was just a stepping stone. Meeting lasted about 2 hours, but a lot got done in those 2 hours. Okay? Someone, anything else? Anything else?
That's it. Can I get a motion to approve this? Ms. Fonseca.
Second, Carter. Motion to approve the summary of the governance committee structure and report as delivered by Vice Chair Padilla, moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Ms. Carter. All in favor? Any opposed or accept? Motion carries. Report accepted.
That concludes our committee reports. Next report is our superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the community, for being here tonight. Thank you, board members. I hope everybody has had a wonderful summer. I was going to say wonderful and relaxing, but I know that's not the case for many board members. But I know everybody here appreciates your service and your commitment. We're going to just quickly cover some things which will be covered in greater length in our full meeting. So if I could get a page change, so on to the next page, please. So the most important, I think, development since we last had an opportunity to speak together is that we have achieved success on our last CUSAC review. It came in the form of the actual scores we were awarded, most notably 100% in governance and 92% in instruction program. I also received a letter, which I've shared with the board, in which the Commissioner of Education indicated in unambiguous terms her intent to recommend to the State Board of Education the return of local control to the city of Newark. I do want to say there's been a lot of comments in the paper and the blogosphere and some from this podium about whether this was an authentic objective and whether it was real. And I'm pleased to be able to respond to those concerns now with, frankly, a proven record that this team committed itself to that. A lot of things don't appear on the scorecard, and there's just an amazing amount of work to work our way through this bureaucratic maze to get this done. A lot of it was done by members of this board. I know the Personnel Committee has met repeatedly on this transition plan, but I really want to thank members of the NPS team for the literally thousands of hours of work that were required to get this process done. As to what happens next, there is every reason to expect that the State Board of Education is going to take the matter up. That is the recommendation of the Commissioner. It may happen, I hope it happens as early as the September meeting, but it will certainly happen this fall. It is, once the vote is taken, and this is something that, again, I want to be very explicit about, the vote is not the moment that there is a formal return to local control. Essentially, the vote is to say that the Commissioner will be directed by the State Board to work with the district to develop a transition plan that will outline the final steps to regain full local control. I fully expect that to happen expeditiously. I believe the statute, and I know Ms. Owens has looked at the statute, as no doubt have others, requires that the Commissioner present the final transition plan. That's the statutory language up to the board. The format is frankly unclear, whether it's a written submission or a formal presentation, but I fully expect that all to happen. So again, a victory, and I think an extraordinary amount of work by all involved. So congratulations to all. Turning the page, please. The work of the Newark Public Schools is not seasonal. A lot of people that I meet on the street say, "Oh, it's the summer. You got the time off." Well, that's not the way it works. We have a very, very comprehensive summer programming initiative, not to mention planning for the following year. There are thousands of Newark students who participate in summer academic programs. For those of you who are sort of research wonks, it is having an enriching summer experience is especially important in light of the well-known phenomenon of what's called summer learning loss between the end of the school year and the beginning of the next, which is particularly an issue that we see in our data. And I am pleased to report that we had about 3,000 students who actually participated this year in our K-8 Summer Plus program. We had a specialized program led by our ELL department. Thank you, Brenda Garcia and her new colleagues, for about 414 English language learners who participated in a special new curriculum, very significant upgrade from our prior programs, a very significant increase numerically as well. As you know from a report we gave you previously, we put special attention, very special attention, on our young learners of reading. We identified rising second graders, that is first graders in the summer between first and second grade, targeted those who were not reading at grade level, actively recruited them through our schools and our administrators, and developed a brand new program that puts a real emphasis on reading. We also worked, incidentally, with Uncommon Schools. Our teachers met as colleagues, and we learned from each other and developed a new curriculum to do that. And we're very pleased with the success of the program. Also, by the way, we increased the percentage of students who participated in this special program by about 50%. We also, and I don't have the numbers with me to size this, but we do provide opportunities for credit recovery for high school students who have fallen behind and are not on track to graduate. And we offer that at both Central and Science Park High School. And then there is an array of other enrichment activities. If I didn't mention her already, thank you to Sarah Cruz for her work in that regard. You see some of them in the small print listed below. We also have a number of partnerships outside the district. Let me just call out one or two. We've formed a partnership with Stevens Institute for Technology, and 15 of our students participate, literally living on campus, seeing what it's like to go to college, taking STEM science-related courses. Several of our students, two of our students went abroad to places as far away as China. Some of our students studied music at the Berklee College of Music. And we also made developed last year a very comprehensive user-friendly catalog of opportunities and worked with an organization called Newark Thrives to get this information out to parents and caregivers. And this helped direct thousands of other students to great programs. I'm particularly fond of the Alvin Ailey Dance program. I hope some of you had a chance to see their performance and so on. As we get ready for the school year, I want to thank Board Member Carter for her report around the really intensive focus we have had. But let me add just a little bit of context. To be today at a level where 98% of our open of our faculty positions are no longer vacant but are filled is really an extraordinary accomplishment. If you look at national data for other cities in the United States, to be at that level with certified teachers in the right subject matter, in the right classrooms, is remarkable. You will never be at 100%, literally ever in any district anywhere, because there's always a little bit of turnover. That number, we're now to about 68 vacancies. I'm particularly pleased that so many math and science positions have been held, and this is easily the most successful staffing effort in the history of the Newark Public Schools. I think she's left, but let me just acknowledge Sarah Ann. Is she here? She's gone for the day. She is one of those unspoken heroes. Obviously, she works with Larissa in that department, but there is nobody better at this, in tracking this. We have about roughly 2,500, 2,600 certified teachers. 2,700, thank you, certified teachers across the Newark Public Schools. You just think about the operational challenge of making sure that we have quality instructors in every spot by the beginning of school year. Sarah and a team of Sarah, right? It's a very small team, manages this process under Larissa's leadership, and she is, I'm just telling you, that is an extraordinary body of work that she and her team have developed. The facilities work continues unabated. We'll have a long and detailed list of the particular projects at an appropriate time, but it's been a very busy summer. Thank you to Jason. I thought I saw him.
He's there.
Where is he? Oh, there he is. Thank you, Jason, for your work and leadership on that. Thank you to Ms. Wilson for her leadership on that. And we just mentioned a few on the page here, but fire suppression projects, interior renovation at Abington, lots and lots and lots of painting and repairs and plumbing and roofs and asbestos abatement and so on. Again, if anybody's of interest, and I know board members are, we have a very detailed list of also how we intend to spend the bond money that we've talked about in the past. When it comes to summer training and development, I really want to call out our assistant superintendents, many of whom are here tonight. They have provided incredible not only leadership but modeling about how to improve schools. I will say that I am incredibly proud of their work. Again, there's very little in the way of summer for people in this line of work, but our principals returned on the 1st of August. Our vice principals returned on August 9th. I had the privilege of getting to meet with the entire assembled crew on the first day back. They have participated in what we call PLI. We're big on abbreviations and acronyms, but the Principal Leadership Institute at Montclair State University, that continues as we go. I want to thank Brad Haggerty, who is here. I want to thank Robert Gregory, who is or was here. And I mean, our assistant superintendents are all former principals who have led their schools to great success. And honestly, I am blown away by their initiative, their analytic skill, their focus, their project management, and frankly, the respect they have earned from the school communities that they work so closely with. I want to thank them all for that. Our educators report back on the 28th of August, and they're there for several days of preparation. This is the first time in recent history that our teachers will have 4 days to train. I do want to ask, I don't know, somebody, the schools that have an extended school year, when do the educators come back? Someone, one of you good people.
For the most part, many of those schools will be returning on the 21st of August.
On the 21st of August. Just as a reminder, half of our schools have agreed to an extended school year. And part of that process is coming early for additional training and culture building and so on. That's about half of our schools. Thank you, Erskine. Thank you, Brad. So a lot of work going on over the summer. We have a number of academic initiatives that have been really the heart of the work. I won't read the words on the page, but we are extremely focused on understanding, literally down to the student level, to the subject level, even to the curricular strand level, where things went well and how we can improve on that and how we can manage our teacher assignments and our student assignments and our targeted interventions so we can build on the successes, which I'm about to report, that we had this year and moving forward into the next year. And turning to that, we'll give you a much more detailed view at our next meeting, but at the end of the day, everybody in this room is here about one thing, and that is making sure that every child who happens to be born into or live in Newark is prepared to graduate from high school ready for success, whether that's college or career or some highly skilled profession that will give him or her not only an opportunity to be a good citizen, but to be an effective an earner for his or her family. And one of the measures of that, and this is actually the only test that is actually required by the federal government, is the PARCC test. This is the third year we've had the test administered in the state and in Newark. It was a smashing success, not only in terms of the progress we've seen, more on that in a moment, but it has just created a data-rich capacity that literally never existed before to analyze the results and to make targeted decisions on behalf of children to improve in the future. I will also say, and I recall my earlier post in Trenton, that the information, the returns, the results, if you will, from the test came to us sooner this year than they ever have in the past, much sooner than the HESPA, much sooner than the NJASC, much sooner than the 2 prior years for the PARCC. They came to us in time for us to actually use them to manage. And by the way, they will never get here sooner. Some people are saying, well, why can't you get them a week later? The reason that, and this is not widely understood, the PARCC is so important because it tests critical thinking skills and writing skills. It involves human intervention as opposed to a Scantron or a fill-in-the-bubble test. It's the kind of test that cannot be beat with drill and kill, with worksheets, with teaching test-taking skills, all of which I happen to oppose. It requires demonstration of analytical thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, and effective writing, and that requires human scoring as opposed to machine scoring. And that's why getting the results back as early as, I believe was it May or June? June, as early as June was really a real asset for us as we plan going forward. How did we do? Well, we grew, and that's what you want. You want growth. You want. This is every year we've taken the park, we've grown in reading and we've grown in math. Our growth rate exceeded that of the state average in both reading and math for 3rd through 8th grade. We did not see as much progress, although we grew in high school, in our high schools, and that growth roughly paralleled that which the entire state saw. So across the state, high school growth was lower than 3rd through 8th. We roughly paralleled that, but in our elementary and middle schools, our future high school students, if you will, we saw very meaningful growth that exceeded the average in the growth. We also mercifully have passed some of the noise levels that existed 3 years ago. 93%, almost 94% of our students participated in a park this year. That was up again. I believe it's been up for three consecutive years. So again, there are a lot of issues. Every one of them is important, but why we are all here is student learning. And without giving away a punchline, our high school graduation rate, I can report, has gone up again. I believe that's the 4th consecutive year, somewhere from in the high 50% in 2010 to a number that is higher than it was last year by several percentage points. And I'm not going to be precise because Mr. Gregory, Deputy Superintendent Gregory, is appropriately disciplined about getting this all firmed up before we put out a number. But they're good. I'm just telling you, they're good, and I'm happy about that. So with that, Mr. Chair, I hand the podium back to you. Thank you.
Any questions? No questions? Okay. All right. Next order of business is to review and accept the agenda for August 22nd, 2017, a regular board meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Owens?
Yeah, I have a question about 12.5, capital expenditures incurred prior to the issuance of bonds, What is that? Please.
Rob, can you pull up that item, 12.5, please? Ms. Owens, you will remember that over the course of the last fiscal year, there have been several conversations regarding our facilities, regarding alternate sources of funding. One of those sources of funding is the capital funding that we have looked for from the city in terms of a $30.5 million bond issuance. There has also been discussion with the SDA regarding emergent projects. They came back with approximately $9.1 million worth of approved projects. Since we applied for those fundings, there have been changes in our buildings. So specifically in large, major capital expenditures, the buildings of Abington and Lafayette. We spoke about Lafayette earlier. We've also talked about Abington for a number of times. Bond funding is very specific. And if you want to be reimbursed, you have to ensure that you have adequately and appropriately gotten the approvals necessary. The board approved a resolution for reimbursement for the bond issuance earlier in the year. With these two new projects, we now need to revamp that reimbursement so that they too are included. And this is what that resolution does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have a statement.
Mr.
I
Brooks.
just would like to, for Mr. Haggerty, that he follow up regarding my resolution that I had before the Program Instruction Committee, that we're following up with those meetings with the respective individuals in his department. So I just want to make sure we're on, Mr. Haggerty, make sure that we're on board with that resolution being rolled out by the respective departments.
Sure, in reference to our resolution that we pushed until next month, Mr. Bledsoe? Yes, so there was a resolution that was proposed this month regarding supports for LGBTQ students in the district, and we looked at the resolution as a committee and made a decision to ensure that the district is equipped, resourced, and ready to deliver on everything in the resolution. So we fundamentally made a decision to push the resolution for 1 month, so you'll see it in September, and in the intervening weeks, we'll have a couple of meetings to make sure that, again, we are set up for success for all that that resolution entails. So members of the community and board, you can expect that resolution next month.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually,
Can I get a motion?
let me just talk, Mr. Chair, on the legal votes. On the legal items, there's annual appointments, 504 accommodations officer, affirmative action officer, designation of newspapers. They're all mandatory. Every year we do it. Just a quick note on the resolution for legal services. As the board remembers, in June, we voted to award the contracts based on the RFP. There are 2 firms that did not respond to the RFP, so they're not going to be getting new work, but the legal department recommends that they nonetheless get a contract just to finish up the work that they were doing so we don't have to incur extra costs and delays. They're not going to be getting new work, but in order, Ms. Wilson's people, and to comply with law and finances, we need to have a contract in place because they're continuing to do work on us. Furthermore, as the board heard tonight, we're going to be adding the discipline policies, which came out of the P&I committee, as Ms. Owens indicated, and also the certification policy that came out of personnel. That's going to be
I just
additional.
need
So can I
clarification.
go ahead, Ms.
Clarification on that, the two.
Which piece?
On the 2 legal firms that you're saying.
Sure.
that
So there's the
Do we
board.
have, can we have that in writing? Is that? do we
Yeah,
know?
it's in the resolution.
Right, but I'm saying the need to keep them on, the justification is that? Because you said Val's people, I didn't understand that.
So accounting-wise, we need a contract with the vendor that we're dealing with. So they didn't respond to the RFP to get new work, so they're not going to be getting new work for 17-18. However, they currently have assigned cases. So rather than say, stop doing work and we'll reassign them to other lawyers, we think the best way to do it is to have them continue working on those cases and finish them out so that we don't incur extra costs and delays.
Let me help General Counsel here. In terms of, in New Jersey, we're required to have contracts with vendors with whom we do business in order to be able to pay them. So while we have cases that are in progress, it is more efficient and more cost-effective for us to continue a minor contract covering the cases that that particular firm may have in progress. Because a transfer of cases requires the district to literally pay for a learning curve of the new firm to cover these cases. So in looking at it, looking at the best and most efficient way to spend dollars as well as to achieve productivity and efficiency, we determined that it would be best, once again, those firms will not get new business, but they will close out the standing cases that they have.
Okay, because I'm just a little curious. They didn't respond, but in good faith, because they have a current contract with us, we're going to continue the work up to that limit that was specified in the original contract, correct?
And it may
I'm just
not-
saying, because if they're not under contract and say, more hours, or they change the hourly rate or whatever.
Yeah, there's no change. It will remain at the current contract terms in order to close out.
Otherwise, we'd have to just cease doing work, reassign things. The new attorneys would have to incur other costs. We'd have delays and adjournments. That's the way it works.
No, I understand. I'm just hoping that they have the good faith, those companies.
They're expected to perform based to the contract and to provide the district with the service that was contracted for.
We're still
at the
monitoring the
rates
service.
and terms contracted at.
So I have a question about 13.4, the affirmative action officer. First of all, I want to know who. Can you just clarify who that person is?
I think the resolution says it, but the affirmative action officer will be Mr. Keith Barton.
So so this will be a reappointment. Have this person been evaluated?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking,
Excuse
Board
me,
Chair.
so, not to interrupt, but that's a personnel matter, so we can't get into that
Well,
right now.
Okay, let me change that question. Let me change that question.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
You know what? Can we? I wanted to move.
Won't you for the regular meeting, why don't we have an executive session or something to
Yeah,
talk
can we
about
talk about
those
this one?
items, so we're not in violation?
Yeah, can we talk about that in executive session? That 13.4?
Yes, we can. We can schedule an executive session, so you need to amend the agenda to indicate that you intend to have an executive session
Well,
at the board meeting.
Rather than having an executive session, can we deal with this offline? Maybe a conversation with the chair and Madam SBA?
I think that we need to have an executive session because I want
members
all
should be-
board members involved in this conversation.
Okay, we can have board members, if that's what the board desires, we have an executive session as the appointment.
Correct. Once again, I will state that we need to amend the agenda because we are talking about the agenda for next week.
Yes.
So Board
so
Chair,
can I get a
please take
motion
the appropriate action.
Can I get a motion to amend the agenda to include executive session?
Before we do that, are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, so why don't we have a motion to accept the agenda with the addition of an executive session and the additional policies under legal?
Motion.
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 Second.
Garcia, who's the second? No. Okay. This motion to accept the agenda for next week with the additions moved by Ms. Garcia, second by Ms. Fonseca. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, the amended agenda is fixed and accepted.
Next order of business is public participation.
This is the public participation portion of the meeting. As a reminder, time limits for all speakers are enforced. There is no sharing or granting of speaking time to others. Speakers must be present when their name is called. Speakers are required to give names and addresses. The public participation portion of the meeting is limited to 10 speakers. First come, first serve. Examples of unacceptable behavior that are not permitted include but not limited to naming district employees and engaging in personal attacks, slurs, excessive loudness, calling out, yelling, generally disruptive behavior, attempt to disrupt the meetings, or inciting others to do so. Public participation at board meetings is intended to allow individual members of the public the opportunity to address the board and the administration on issues of public concern, not as a forum for two-way dialogue with the board members or district officials. The superintendent or designee or Mr. Chair may respond to questions either at the end of the session or responses may be provided at a later time. The superintendent or board chair may interrupt any speaker or terminate any speaking privilege if the comments are disruptive or obscene. An individual may be cautioned that a personally directed statement may be slanderous or defaming, and the individual may be liable for his or her statements. Attempts to hijack or filibuster the proceedings, repeated interrupting or badgering the board chair or district officials, repetitive and truculent speech, or disregard for the rules of decorum are not tolerated and may subject the individual from the meeting. If necessary, the meeting may be adjourned. Mr. Chair?
First speaker, we're going to ask former Assemblyman Craig Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Superintendent Surf and all members of the board. Congratulations to those of you who recently, well, can't be recently elected because back in April, but certainly glad to hear and see the dialogue and young people taking part and participating in the debate and the information being shared. I'm just really here Just on a couple of things. First of all, a lot of great things happening at NJIT. As you know, I'm part of the Center for Pre-College Programs at NJIT. I saw you had the Stevens Institute of Technology up there. Oh, boy, I had to get up and speak after that. But, you know, right here in Newark, we've got NJIT. And we've got a number of great things going on. Thousands of Newark school kids were actually at NJIT over the summer. So we're very interested in making sure that these students...
I acknowledge and I thank you.
These students go on to college. Matter of fact, 100% of our participants, we have Gear Up program, we have Upward Bound English Language Learners, we have College Bound, which is a state program, and we have a Talent Search at NJIT. And I can speak to Gear Up, that's one of my personal programs. We have 80.7% of our students are seniors going on to institutions of higher learning. That's 2- and 4-year colleges, and that's just last year, 80.7% of them enrolling in colleges. So yeah, you can give that a hand. Those are all Newark kids, all Newark public school kids. We have three target high schools. We've got Central, Barringer, and Eastside. And as a matter of fact, we have two great initiatives going on for this coming September. One is dual enrollment, where we're giving college credit. We can give college credit, of course, it's up to the district to give high school credit. Pre-college program, you have to give high school credit also. So we're working with the Newark Public Schools to make sure that we can do that. That way we can pay for it out of pre-college program funds. And anytime we can spend funds on behalf of Newark Public School students, I'm sure we're all happy about that. The second thing is our three target schools. We want, about 2 years ago, Central High School students in the Gear Up program, we collaborated on an overnight college tour with students we took Central High School students to Maryland, Washington, D.C., and we're looking to do that again, only we got a little kickback from not kickback, but a little bit of, I don't want to use that word, but we got a little bit of negative feedback from Eastside and Barringer. So this year in September, we want to take 3 high schools on overnight college tours. Because we understand that if the students get a chance to get to the college, then they can really raise their expectations. They know they'll be there. So I just wanted to raise those 2 things. And again, exciting things on the in store. And certainly looking forward to working with Newark Public Schools and the Board of Education as it returns back to local control. Garen, I congratulate you on that. As a matter of fact, I don't know whether I want to say this or not, but I was one of the sponsors on the Cusack bill. You know, I know that's probably a boop negative, but forgive me. I'm glad that we're finally back. Congratulations. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Deborah Smith Gregory.
Good evening, Board Chair, rest of the board members. You received a correspondence from the Alliance for Newark Public Schools. And as the chairperson of that particular alliance, as well as the president of the Newark Branch NAACP, I come to you on behalf of that letter. I did not receive a request. I did not receive a response to the request. So I wanted to go on record that we are asking for an audit of Newark Public Schools before it returns to local control, at least by December 2017. And it would cover, the audit would cover instruction, operations, finance, community engagement, personnel, everything that each of you just reported on. Because the reality of it is that in us being returned to local control, then the weight rests with you. And you need to have a baseline of where this organization is. And it can be by an objective institution. And especially since when Craig just came up here and talked about NJIT, and it brought to my mind, we have had no annual reports for the Newark Public Schools since when? 2011, at least, when former Superintendent Anderson came. So you don't have a clue about what's going on with Newark Public Schools as a whole. You have the little fires about Carver, about Lafayette, about the murals, which all students should be included. You have those little fires, but the bigger issue is each department that you chair as a committee. And you can, and we don't have any money. Well, we have college partners. We have NJIT. We have Montclair State University. We have Rutgers. We have Rutgers Law School. We have my alma mater, Seton Hall. So to say that it can't be done because the money is not there is totally unacceptable. So it is a question and a request that I make of this board. And then you also have, when the state came in 1995, there was a $14 million surplus, even though the district was accused of malfeasance. So now in 2017, there's not going to be a magic bullet about this return to local control. Abracadabra, we have local control and everything is going to be okay. It is a new situation, a new district. It is a charter district. It is a public district. The superintendent, former superintendent condoned by the former commissioner said, we're not interested in a district, we want a portfolio. So sometimes it's really important to go back and to assess where we've been in order to have a better understanding of where we are so that we know where we're going. And the board members here that are, you will be commended and applauded for bringing the Newark Public Schools, all 66,000 is it now? Schools and as you say, massive district back to the community. But you need to know what is the shape of the house. My concern is, and Mr. Bledsoe said it so well about the recent article by Superintendent Cerf that commended charters, but yet here in this small venue, he said some things like he's blown away by his team. He wants to build on success. Park was a smashing success. We grew, but yet he wrote about the greatness of charter schools. I rest my case.
Next speaker, Stephen Outing.
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good to see you, Commissioner Cerf. Mr. President, Mr. Lewis, I just want to salute you and say congratulations. It's been a long journey, and I just want to take this opportunity publicly to say to you, it's been a long road coming in this transition. July 12th, 1995, that was a very important day for me. That was the day my daughter, Kelly, was born, and that was the date when the state took over the school system, and she's finishing up at Seton Hall University, and I'm very proud of her, and I'm very proud of you. And if you'll let the mayor know, I want to salute him too for this transition to making sure we have a smooth transition in bringing the district back to local control. And Mr. Cerf, I want to thank you for your service And I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to June, and I hope we are setting up a committee for finding a new superintendent, because I think it's very imperative, Mr. President, that we put the things in place so that we have a transition. I know Roger Leone is over there to my right. I see the great Mr. Gregory to my left. I know we're in good hands in reference to educators in our district and making sure our children have a quality education. I'm very, very excited today, and one of my comrades gave me an article in reference to a lease agreement, in reference to leasing a building from Mr. Berger for a 16-year lease for $42 million. And I hope this don't affect our children's education. I heard the buzzer just go off, and I just want to say that I'm very concerned, and I just want to read this quote from Ms. Fonseca. She said, since 2006, the district has spent $50 million leasing properties. The cost added to the new lease totaling a staggering $92 million over 25 years. Let me say this. This is not acceptable, Mr. President. We have buildings that we are selling, 12 buildings. I mean, we can move in one of those, the people in this building to one of those buildings. We got the building on Norfolk Street. We got a whole lot of buildings we can put staff and personnel in. And I know there, with the park exam, there's a digital divide in our community, and they're gearing everything towards the computer. I just want to make sure that we meet the needs of our children, because it's very imperative that our children succeed. I'm not playing that public charter game. We just want all our children to be successful in their education. And I just want to end it on this note to you, Mr. President. I just want to say, when you fear men, you do the bidding of men. When you fear God, you do the will of God. Don't sell out for 30 pieces of silver, my brother, because God's justice never sleep, even when you sleep. Peace.
Amen. Ellis, last name Ellis.
This evening, I thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you so much, Chairman, Superintendent, and the rest of the board. I'm here today about transportation. Oh, and I forgot. I have to say my name is Verndry Elliott, and my address is 8 Evelyn Court in Maplewood, New Jersey. And some of you might be wondering, why is someone from Maplewood, New Jersey standing at this podium speaking with you? One, I'm in this city 7 days a week. All 4 of my children have started school, and 2 graduated in the city of Newark, Arts High and Bard High School. My children we are entertained in this city. Right now, my daughter is over a friend's house, and she's been there since Saturday in the city of Newark. And just to let you know that the city of Newark is the most important to me and its children, right? And I hope you all can understand why I'm here. But I'm here about transportation and transportation safety. As a mother of 4 who doesn't own a car, who doesn't drive, it was always anxiety about how my children were going to attend school safely, get there with just one adult in the house, but 4 children going to 4 different schools. And I know that I don't stand alone with that concern about how children travel to school and back home. I know there's a lot of initiatives in the South Ward right now, safe corridors, and I am working with those stakeholders to assure that our children travel safely through the streets. But that's only in one area right now in the city of Newark. We have other districts as well, other wards. But also our children are on the bus traveling across the wards, and I don't really hear any real clear ideas about how do we do it? How do we get our children to school safe? And I've looked and done my research. And when I look and when I've read the commissions, New Jersey Transportation Commission reports, and how they are looking to reform the public transportation system, but it does not include at all children. And I just wanted to know who is working on any initiatives about transportation, since more of our children now are traveling on buses than it was before. And I'm letting you know that I am working on these initiatives, working on an initiative with parents, and I welcome some ideas, some data, if you have any. And that's one of the problems, that there isn't any real clear data about the safety, and there needs to be, so that we can go further and see what we need to do. I appreciate you all listening, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but I should have had this person talk right after the assembling person. Former board vice chair, Dr. Rashid McQuarrie. Just go ahead. You're next. Go ahead. Okay. Ms. Goldman. That's right. How you doing?
I live at 337 Fairmount Avenue in the Central Ward. So I've been listening to a lot of things that have been said tonight, and the hour and they. I just want to say that all children, whether they go to traditional public school or public charter school, they're our children. They live here in Newark, and we need to make sure that they're educated equally. So just on top of what he was saying, that's when we talk about these leases and the buildings and who's where and what's what and how they're being educated and then what they're being educated with, we need to keep in mind that these are our children, not they, not them. Right. It's ours. I just want us to take ownership on all the children in Newark, not just because they go to traditional public school or because they go to charter school, because actually the children didn't have a choice on where they go. We as parents chose what was best for our children. I'm gonna make a comment. I live across the street from a school. I would have loved to send my child to that school, but at that point in time, it was a failing school. There's been changes since then. They were making improvements, but at that point in time, I didn't see fit for my child to go to that school. Now that you guys are here, I'm hearing that you're making changes across the city. When those changes are fit, a lot of these kids who may be in charter schools who are going across town, because my children go across town to school, which means that sometimes I'm taking them, sometimes I'm picking them up, and it's not the most convenient for me. I would prefer my child to go right across the street to a school that I can look across and see them walk to school, or I can walk across the street without having to jump in my car, jumping in the Uber, or jumping in the cab to go visit the school. As we make these changes, those things will happen. But I just want us to take ownership on all the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilhelmina Holder. Don't run, Ms. Holder.
Everybody's got one vote. Tomorrow's my birthday, I got one vote too. I got one vote. Assemblyman Craig Stanley, I love you to death, but I came before you. I signed up before you, but I'm blaming that on my buddy, the chair. I just want to say there are a number of things. I love the discussions. We always have the fake discussions about equity. My grandchild's at Ridge, and to hear some things that are said, because we're not being honest about what we're talking about. 6 years ago, 4 years ago, I went into that building at George Washington Carpenter, and I was blown away by the inequity. And that's when it started. When I saw the smart boards, I saw the carpeting, I saw everything upstairs, and when I went downstairs on my way to the doctor, I could not believe. I just wish the parents would all come together and have the honest discussions. You cannot benefit if my child suffers. We all live in this community together. So when you march with me to talk about equity, then I can be respectful. But when you sit here and say we're all in this together and no one really wants to get out there and say, you know what, it is unfair that Chris Surf and Governor gave more money to the charter schools and took away from the public education side. We're not having that honest discussion, and we could prove that. So when you march with us, march about true equity and not fake stuff. We are together living in this community, so I just want to say that. But let's be honest with each other. Let's not lie, all right? We want to talk about the real deal here. So the real deal is we need a forensic audit. That's the real deal to the board members. You need a baseline as to where you're starting, because next year, when they're out of here, guess who's going to get blamed? You are, when they have to close the schools. You are, when there's 43 kids at Ridge and 25 at Seek. And you want blood in the streets? That's what's going to happen. Because I'm going to be upset if I think someone has an advantage over my grandchild. That's not going to happen, because I'm going to be after y'all. And we're no longer going to be friends. All right, so the other thing that we need to talk about is the summer school attendance. We didn't hear a thing about numbers. Who started summer school, who was supposed to go, who made it through, especially the high school, who graduated in June, who graduated in August, what schools they were from. We didn't hear a thing about numbers, real numbers. Graduation rate. Where's the graduation rate? I look forward to that. Secondary Parent Council looks forward to that every August. We have meetings. Where are the numbers? Who graduated, who didn't, and where are they? I worked on a report for our little group, and I got numbers. Assemblyman Stanley, 83% of our kids in our little program went straight to college. Yay, from the library. And I could tell you what percent went straight to the workforce and what 12% went to the community college. You know, we need real stuff, not the fake stuff. I can't help, you can't help, we can't help each other with these generalities. How many kids graduated from Barringer? How many kids did not? How many math teachers? Does Mr. Brown, we had to hire someone, try to find money to hire another math instructor? Because when the kids come to us, we never saw this. You never saw basic algebra 1? You never had this concept, algebra 2, geometry? I'm telling you. So when I hear that we don't have math teachers, I say, here we go again. Where's the shortage? The shortage, not just 8 math. What grade levels? Is it in the high school? Is it in elementary? What schools are suffering? Who's suffering? I didn't hear one board member ask for real data. Don't give me generalities. There are 8 people missing. We have a human rights, a human resource, and a personnel, and now we're hiring consultants, and we can't get teachers? Are you serious? How much money is being wasted? Put a team of community people together, and we can help you find teachers. We can grow our own. We know who's coming out of the colleges. We know where they're coming from. Let us help you, because next year you will be blamed for this. You need baseline data to make this stuff happen. Let's not do the fake stuff. I can't. Not after this week with what happened in Washington, D.C. No more fake stuff. No more fake stuff. Let's be real. And the other thing is, we need curriculum enhancements in terms of the Amistad Bill and civics. I'm a Newark trustee, no blame-free, I'm blameless. Okay, we need civics back in the classroom. We also need Amistad. This has been on the books since 2002, and our children, believe me, are not knowing our history, and that's sad. And we need to make that. Afro-American history is world history. So it should not be a piece of, it needs to be included all throughout every single discipline. So I say to you, and I'd like to also ask that you consider Mr. Brown speaking tonight, because he did ask me to sign him up, and I made a mistake. I do make mistakes too. And I'd like to ask that you consider that. So my main concern is that we need some real data along the lines that I asked you, and we need to have it by next week. Thank you.
Next speaker, Dr. Rashid McCreary.
Thank you very much, Chairman Lewis, and everyone attending. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. And I don't know if some of this can be answered today or at some point. I don't make it to as many meetings as I used to, and that's for a number of reasons. But one of the things that I found in attending the meeting today is about roughly a year. I stood here asking for a request for information. That was a year since I was on the board. Now this is 2 years removed, 1 year from the request, probably 3 or 4 years from when I was making the request as a board member, and still, in fact, I don't have any of the information that I've requested. So I'm gonna make it very clear. I'm gonna give my phone number. I'm gonna give my email address.
Tell me what the information is.
100%.
Okay, great.
I've six points here that I would like to lay out, and I will try to make it as expeditious as possible. My first question was, Mrs. Owens noted a program, Miss Owens noted a program, the Newark History course. Yes? So if some more information can be provided to that program, when was it created, to whom, and how it's enacted. The second point that I would like to get information about and clarity on is what Ms. Holder spoke about, which was the Homicide Act, which was enacted in 2002. And given the climate where we are over the last 6 months, in particular the last 4 days, how has this been implemented within the Newark School District from K through 12? What is the accountability on this act within our state, again, from 2002 to now? So that's number two. Number three, when I was on the board, there was a great initiative which was entitled Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow, trying to harness all of our attendance data. What is the data over the last 5 years? Are students attending? Are they not? What are those results? Can we correlate that to anything? Question number 4, I think this was also noted as well. What is our summer school data? Who are the students that are invited? Is it an increase or a decrease? Do we see a correlation between the programs that they are in and the performance in the school year? I noted, or shall I say, I heard when you said students are invited to come based on their deficiencies during the school year. Well, what if the child or their family does not elect for them to go? What happens to that kid? Do they still move on? Are they retained? What are the supports in place if it isn't required? Next question related to this. Have we decided and come to an understanding about what our high school graduation, what our retention rate is for the district, and what that means for accountability both from the superintendent, principals, assistant principals on down? I'll ask one more question and I can put the rest in writing. Well, I just sent it to the chairperson. So last question. I had a couple more, but I'll end on this one. For the 2016 and 2017 budget, it was projected that the district would have roughly a $50 million deficit. Okay? 2016, 2017. My question is twofold. I understand that the district turned over 12 buildings to the Newark Housing Authority that would save roughly $2 to $4 million. My question then is, one, that's only $2 to $4 million. What did the district do to close that gap in 2016 and 2017? What is our projected deficit for 17, 18? And at some point, we're going to get to a place where selling off buildings will no longer be a solution or an option at all. What is a long-term solution that we have both under district control and once we return to local control? And Mr. Lewis has the other questions. Thank you.
So I actually would like to, if I may, trouble you for one more minute. So first of all, I'm very grateful if we could get those questions, and if you would copy. Well, you could, either way, that would be great.
Absolutely.
I will say just a couple of things because I don't want them left hanging. A lot of the information you've asked for, not all, absolutely, has been the subject of extensive public discussion at these meetings, particularly the budget.
Okay.
But the highlight of that is that As I'm sure that Ms. Wilson would want to would agree with this, we have closed the budget gap. The sale of the buildings was a very modest portion of that, and we did put out an explanation about where X million here, X million there, X million there. We're happy to get that to you. But that budget gap, by the way, as you know from your prior service, was closed by operation of law. It had to be closed. So we have submitted a balanced budget. We have also talked about summer school attendance, and we have not finalized the numbers for this year. But you make a good point. We will absolutely put that out. I basically tonight, because this is a business meeting and not a full meeting, said we had 3,000 this and 2,000 that. We did talk about our special recruitment effort for children who were behind in their reading, and that involved a very intentional process led by our principals who identified children by name, actively went out and recruited them, literally, going to homes to bring them in.
But is this a required or is it an elective?
This was something that there is not to the best of my knowledge, a requirement or it was an NPS designed program. We actually hired some of our most effective teachers from a large number of applicants to serve them, and we developed a special program. So, listen, you are owed an answer to all of your questions, and if you'll just submit the letter, I will personally make it my business to get you the answers.
Then I will personally copy you on this as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Dr. McCrary. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Wilson.
As always,
Always
it
a
is a
pleasure.
pleasure to
Yes,
see
ma'am.
you. Let me point you to the district's website.
Yes.
We still publish our user-friendly budget. We also publish the budget presentation, which provides for you in detail how this year's budget was planned,
Okay.
how the gap, not deficit, was managed, and how the asset sales, particularly the building sales, were used as part of balancing the budget. We, in fact, did not lay off staff. We hired 67 new teachers, and we entered this fiscal year with approximately somewhere between 17 to 20 million in excess fund balance, which all went towards helping manage and balance that $50 million gap. My telephone number is the same. My
Always.
office is the same.
Understood.
Please review that material and feel free to
So let
come
me
and
s-
visit.
So let me say this, Ms. Wilson. I do appreciate your comments on the budget and Mr. Surf's as well. But again, that was only one question out of the 6 that I had.
Understood.
And
That's
I've been
the only
asking
one
these
I
same
can
questions for the last 4 years.
That's the only one.
You got it.
Understood.
Thank you, sir.
Understood.
Venice Roper. Jordan Roper.
Good evening, everyone, advisory board members and superintendent, sir. Today I'm here to talk to you about some of the things that has been going on with me at American History High School. I'm also here to support some of my classmates who could not be here today because they're on vacation. I'm also here to support the security guards at American History High School. The guards went out of their way to mentor us, to take their time out to give us respect. Our security guards tried to work along with the principal and dean of discipline to keep our school safe. They were verbally and physically assaulted by students in the building, and no one stood up for them. Now they are transferring guards out of our building that work hard with students to keep us out of trouble. The VP sat in their office, drank coffee, ate donuts, locked their doors while the guards covered their detail, like making sure students filed incident reports. They even called home to tell parents that the VPNs wouldn't do it. The vice principals at American History High School did nothing to make our school better. They allow students that they like to stay in the hallway by their locker and refer to their peers as BITCH. The Spanish students are allowed to get away with things they didn't allow the African American students to get away with. We have some major problems at American History High School, but none of it has to do with security. I repeat, none of it has to do with security. When one of my classmates tried to attack me, it was not the VPs who came to my aid, it was security. Matter of fact, there was no administration in the building, although they were still on the clock. And that's what's been causing a problem for the last 3 years. We have classes going on in our building with no adult supervision, and the guards were trying to help by covering the classes. Then the VPs wrote them all up for not being on their detail, but no one said anything about the VPs not checking the classroom to make sure the teacher was present. And if we're going to have a successful year, everyone must start working together and stop blaming each other if we're going to be successful. What I'm telling you today, I told my father during the school year, and my father told it to the principal and the assistant superintendent, who was the principal, and he chose to do nothing to make our school better. The students of American History High School are asking for a meeting with the superintendent, director of security, and the new principal of the building. I'm asking the adults, just don't make decisions for us, talk to us, and I believe we should have a successful year. Together we stand, divided we fall. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Roper.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to piggyback on my daughter on some things. In June, I asked the principal and the teacher for my daughter's final exams. And then I asked for ADA accommodations to make sure I received the information before the meeting. The principal and the teacher refused to give me my daughter's test and chose to give her a failing grade without grade justification. I CC'd the principal, I CC'd the assistant sup at that time, and I even CC'd Superintendent Cerf and Mr. Haggerty, and you did nothing. When someone told my daughter that they were going to shoot her, I CC'd them and they did nothing. And then the executives chose to lie and said there was nothing going on about History High School, and I provided them with videos to show that kids were being assaulted and snatched off the stage. And what did the executives do? They did absolutely nothing. So I'm going to say this. It's transparent to me that we have executives who are hiding behind their title saying they're doing work and they're doing absolutely nothing. And I describe them as lazy. Now, I've met, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to disrespect anyone. I met with Ms. Mendez about another building about some of the same issues. We had an awesome meeting and got some things done. Why do the men of this district hide behind their titles? I have a problem with this, and then I have a problem with backdoor politics from leading to the pipeline straight down to City Hall. And then we have executives who are people from City Hall are protecting them and pushing their careers forward. And so what I decided to do is call the state. And so I'm here to inform you guys that I am talking with the state. The state is going to meet with me because I did ask to meet with Superintendent Cerf, and he did not hear me. And so guess what? There are some things that are going all the way down to City Hall, and I've been investigating. Since you guys made me angry, I started investigating. And so there's some pipelines going into City Hall that's pushing people's careers forward because they have a hidden agenda. In the meantime, we're still up here arguing about charter schools and public schools instead of representing all schools and all kids or all students, and we're up here arguing about that. When someone said 28 kids in McCarver, well, we had 30 in history in some of our classrooms. That is too many kids in the classroom, especially when you don't have teachers showing up for classes. And they're punching out and they're stealing time. And this district is 2017. We went back to 1995 with the things that are going on in this district. And the teachers that are doing their job, you fire them. If they want to educate children and give them homework, the principal fires them. So we keep the ones who don't want to work and then get rid of the ones that do want to work. Where is the bottom so we can make sure we don't go any further? All I ask this district to do as a parent, and I'm finished, just do what our ancestors have put down in writing. Just do what is written. And that's all I ask you to do. And I'm going to say to the new deputy, I will not support you. And I will be turning over the district information to the state and the federal government to approve what I'm saying. You guys have a nice day. Thank you.
Jordan, before you leave, Jordan, I just want you to know that this board have listened to all your concerns, and I'm happy to say there's new leadership at American History High that I'm confident in. All right? So, thank you, Mr. Roper. Next, Smith. First name Smith. Next speaker, Jacqueline Bostic Calder.
My name is Jacqueline Bostic Calder. I'm alumni for Southside/Malcolm X Shabazz, 80 Johnson Avenue. Miss Carter, I hope Shabazz is on your list to work in Shabazz, as there's work to be done in Shabazz. There's water near our gym constantly. The ceiling in the cafeteria down on the basement, it's been there for a minute, and I hope y'all started on the work in the our auto mechanic room, because alumni want to make sure, and we want to go and see, has the work been done? Because that is going to be given back to the children. Y'all have wasted a lot of money, salaries, leasing, a lot of money. Most municipalities have their own board of education, whether it's in the downtown or Springfield Avenue or on a main street. That's a waste of money, leasing. Leasing. You can educate the children with that. Another thing is, I'll soon be out of school 50 years. Ne'er sports ever took. I think that's hideous that they got to fundraise for uniforms or equipment. Nobody's never did that when I was going to school. It was a given. It was in the budget. We always went to Washington every year. My mother ain't pay a dime, and I've been in Newark 64 years. I wasn't born here, but when they took me from Camp Kilman, I was here. We went to Washington every year, and we went to the Liberty Bell. These kids have never been to a Liberty Bell, and they probably never been to Washington. I've never heard them say they went to Washington or to the Liberty Bell. Those field trips were not fundraised. They were there by the school. They never had. It's hideous when them kids come to my car for money to buy a uniform. That's not right. This school, this Newark has the biggest budget in the state of New Jersey. It's more than the state, it's more than the county, and it's more than the city budget. Our kids should not have to fundraise. Our kids should not have to come here and beg for anything. In our schools, we had instruments. I learned how to play a harp at Clinton Place Junior High School. We had instruments. Every school had a band. Arts High, Weekway, Barringer, Central, the down there East Side. They wasn't grouped together. Everybody had a band, and when they had a parade, we had a parade. It's hideous that our kids have to go out and fundraise. And then, like Mr. Stanley, my kids went to pre-college consortium. They went to pre-college. One went to Rutgers and one went to NJIT. Seton Hall. Those were things in here because you don't have no guidance counselors to send these people here. To send them. Y'all rather have these kids on the street, gang banging, and everything else, and in jail, instead of taking and supporting the community. That's what it is. And to get local control, you have to go to the community. Because this should stop. That money is wasted. These people go home down South Jersey, up 280, wherever. But we're still here in the hood. They care less about our kids, but they want that paycheck come that Friday. Every 2 weeks they want a paycheck. Not now one of them care about our kids. So y'all better listen, get an audit, and put it back in the budget. Because our kids need music, They need the arts and everything else. And I did go to the health department. So we will be looking at and make sure that Shabazz is clean with the oil and that car and the asbestos. We are going down in there.
Thank you, Lyndon Brown. Last speaker.
Good evening, good evening. First, let me just say how elated I was to see today's Star Ledger and see a Newark Public Schools graduate on the front page, graduating from Malcolm X Shabazz and attending Harvard. And I hope to see that promoted on our district's website. I was just elated, and I've been sharing it with a lot of people. But those are the type of things that we like to see promoted in Newark Public Schools. I want to also commend our summer school principals. I think they did an awesome job. I went to quite a few of the summer school sites. I talked to some of them. I talked to the students. They were engaged. But I am curious as to how many were enrolled and what percentage actually completed the programs. The percentage of students who came out of charter schools who attended our new public schools summer learning programs, and where the funds came from for those charter school students who attend our summer school sites, because I know that students who go to Newark Tech and parochial school, they have to go to their own summer school sites, even though they are Newark students. I heard someone say that there were 67 new teachers hired for September, but how many retired? Is that just a washout of how many retired and those people were replaced? And are there still vacancies, and where do those vacancies exist? I want to also piggyback on what our former board members talked about. He talked about, cost savings, and I think one of the ways we can save money for the district is to eliminate the one Newark enrollment so that the bus transportation can be cut down immensely. And we also need to get rid of the extended learning day because it has not improved attendance. It has not improved student achievement. It has not improved school climate and culture. You have students staying to 3:45, 4:15. Teachers not want to stay after that for PTA meetings. They don't want to do chess clubs. They don't want to do any other type of activities. And they don't want to work in these schools. Some of them are signing contracts that do not include the extended day. Your teacher's going back on the 21st of August. And that's money that could be saved if we get rid of this extended learning day that we have. I heard mention on Newark Patch on the internet that there were going to be 4,000 computers donated to Newark Public School high school students this fall. And I didn't hear any mention of that tonight, so I'm seeking some clarity on that. I want to also speak about the fact that we really need to look at the ineffective and inexperienced administrative leadership in many of our schools. It's just really having an adverse effect on student achievement. It's just not educationally sound to have these administrators remain at Louis Munoz Marin, Speedway, 13th Avenue, George Washington Carver, Spencer, Dr. Horton, E. Alma Flagg, Weekway, Chancellor. We have ineffective leadership at these schools, and it is really impacting student achievement. I also want to talk about the fact that we need to know how many students graduated in June and in August, what that graduation percentage looks like. I want to encourage the board members to visit Weekway, since we're going to be co-locating there, and make sure that there is true equity occurring with our Newark Public School students and our charter school students who are going to be housed there, because it is unfair that one floor has air conditioning and carpeting and the other floor does not. So we want to make sure that our board members are aware so that you can make informed decisions going forward in the coming year. I also want to acknowledge the number of many students who attended the pre-college programs, Gear Up, Upward Bound, Saul Cooperman. I saw quite a few students from Newark Public Schools down at Rutgers and NJIT engaging in the summer learning, and I thought it was excellent. They were very excited about it. Unfortunately, we do have some schools that don't get the word, don't have guidance counselors, 13th Avenue included, and so those students don't get this type of information and access to these opportunities. So I want to implore our assistant superintendents to really step up your game this year. We have to come to you repeatedly over the past school year with concerns, and some of them have not been addressed, and we need to make sure that we put children first in 2017, 2018. Enjoy the remainder of your summer.
Just one quick point. There are no charter school students in Weequahic. Thank you.
Eagle is not a charter school. That's the end of our public participation. Any old or new business?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Owens?
Yes, I just wanted to give some quick responses to public participation. To Ms. Gregory, I thought I did respond to the email about the letter with the audit, so I apologize if I did not. However, I did request that be added to the Board Development and Governance Committee's agenda for this month, and the chair, Mr. Padilla, did add that to the agenda, so we will be discussing an audit. And to Ms. Holder, there you go. Absolutely appreciate your questions along with other public participation members about the summer school data. Did just want to point out that Summer Plus ended on the 4th and summer school, right, for high schoolers ended on the 11th. And our Program and Instruction Committee meeting was on the 8th. So the data was not available for us to review, and it's not formally completely available, but in that meeting we did discuss, and it was Board Member Carter who brought up specifically making sure that we get the educational outcomes from that analysis. So the Program and Instruction Committee will definitely stay on top of that. However, I definitely welcome any particular questions you have to email to us so that we can make sure we get those answered and that be a part of the analysis. I know that we already requested that Dr. McCreary send those questions via email because I wasn't able to catch everything, but I definitely second particularly everything around Amistad, and we will continue to discuss that in program instruction. And for just Mr. Brown's question in particular, I'm not sure if it would be Ms. Wilson or Mr. Haggerty, if we can get a response about these 4,000 computers that have been donated. Is that something that has happened? Which schools? And why didn't we discuss that in program instruction? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I did email Dr. McQuarrie's request to all the board members, so it should be in your email.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Dr. McQuarrie request, emailed it to everybody. Any other questions?
Regarding the 4,000 computers, that's actually a program with Sprint that will provide internet access, which has been determined that a majority percentage of our families do not have access to internet. So this is a partnership with Sprint. I don't have all the details. Mr. Haggerty, would you like to share? And we'll ensure it's in the board packet. It's just came out today, so, okay? Go ahead.
Yeah, Ms. Wilson, you basically summarized as much as I know. There are others maybe in the room who know more than I do. I'm sorry.
We'll get you the information. I do know it's a partnership with our Chief Information Officer, Troy Fisher, who's not here tonight, and I do know that it's a piece with Sprint, and it's to spread internet access for students, hotspots, actually through, I think, mobile devices that have been donated that will allow them to do so. I think Sprint has a goal of almost 1 million devices across, I think, the country over a period of time. I apologize if I don't have other information.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Johnson?
First, I'd just like to say to Ms. Jackie, I remember at the last meeting that we had, you would address the issues that you had at Malcolm X Shabazz with Ms. Wilson, and she told you that the oil had been removed from the mechanic shop. Yes, she did. It was on record.
All right. Can y'all talk about that offline? Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Newbeck, Ms. Gaddy.
Okay. Okay. We're going to look into that for you, Ms. Jackie. All right.
Go ahead, Jack.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Jackie, can you get her out there when she come out there? You can talk.
I also had another issue. I visited Westside High School last week, 3 days last week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, to their Lights On program, and I think that's an awesome initiative that's going on at that school. But I had some major concerns while being inside of Westside High School. They have a major issue with cockroaches. I was in the bathroom and I was like attacked, like big roaches. Walking down the corridors in the hallway, it was a lot of roaches, like big roaches, like not little baby ones. Westside High School. And also I have a real big issue and a real big concern about the parking lot at Westside High School. I actually fell coming outside of Westside High School in the parking lot and had to be helped out by security and twisted my ankle. And it was a little kid about 5 years old, and he was in the parking lot, and there's a hole probably about 2 feet tall, and he was inside the hole throwing dirt outside of the hole. I kid you not. It's right on the outside in the front when you drive all the way around the parking lot. So I think you guys really need to address that before it becomes a major issue.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Gaddy?
And I just want to send that information to our operations committee so we can address it at the next meeting. But I wanted to also mention Jackie Marquise, our chair, established ward-wide board members to serve in their respective wards. I'm a South Ward resident along with Darche Carter. I spoke with the chair. We are going to be setting up a meeting with the assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, right, and representation so that we can be more informed about the issues at our particular schools and our particular wards. Because just like the issue that came up that we talked about majority of our time this evening with Carter, George Washington Carver and Seek, we should not have information come to us from the community. As board members, we're elected and information should be, and we should be informed and then report out to the community. And so I just want to let you know Shabazz is on our radar. Nobody's forgetting about Shabazz, as well as the other schools in the South Ward as well. I hear you. I hear you, South Side. Indian for life. But anyway. But also, I wanted to just mention, as we prepare to receive our students for this coming year, we talked about the safety precautions, the concerns I had specifically at Arts High with my son crossing that street. We had a couple suggestions. We had the Newark Police Department come in, work with us, our security guards. And I know we overlooked that at our operations committee, so I want to put that back on our agenda. But Ms. Wilson, just to kind of give us an update as to where we are. I know the city had a study they was going to get back to us, and we was going to look at the different measures. Yeah, I'm saying put it on our agenda for next month.
Okay. All right. Any other board members?
I just want to follow up. Today, Board Member Garcia and I spoke with Mr. Haggerty in reference to the special assistant for athletics. Can we just have him reminded about that particular conversation and have that particular individual reach out to us?
So, yes. But also, I just wanted to address one of the concerns about the fundraising. We talked about this in our committee and operations, and I'm like I have low tolerance for certain things, and after you tell an individual more than once that they shouldn't be doing it, it's time to go to the next level. So I requested that in our next operations meeting that we have the athletic director come in so we can discuss this, because I'm tired of coming down 78 and getting off the highway and seeing one of our children asking for money. I'm tired of getting off 280, seeing one of our children asking for money when we have schools giving back money out of the athletic budget to the Board of Education. It should not happen. It don't happen in Livingston. It don't happen in Millburn. It should not happen in Newark, New Jersey, at least under my watch, while I'm the president of this board. I don't want to see that, right? So we're going to talk about that at our next operations committee. And also, everyone have a nice day. Thank you. Can I get a meeting adjourned? Motion adjourned.
Motion, yes.
Okay. Moved by Carter, second by Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Good
Tell
night.
Dave about